The meeting will now reconvene at 6:08. Legal counsel will provide the report during the regular council meeting. If there is no objection by the city council and successor agency, I will now adjourn the closed session city council and successor agency meeting at 8:06.
Mayor, would you like me to
6:08.
report on the closed session items
During the regular council meeting?
during the regular?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, April 11th, 2022, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Garden Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, please be advised that members of the successor agency may participate in today's meeting telephonically. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any agency member should have any conflict of interest, virtually please leave the room by turning off video and muting yourself. You may still continue listening to the meeting. Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Leal and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Michael Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor, and councilmen and women. It's always a blessing to be part of this meeting. I thank you for making me the person that does the prayer, the opening prayer, and thank you again. Our chief and the rest of the staff, it's always a blessing to be with all of you. And I'd like to read from Psalms 20, since we're living in really troubled times. Verse 1 and verse 2, it says, "May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from his sanctuary and bless you with his presence." Let us pray. Father, we thank you for the blessing of our leaders. Thank you for our mayor. Thank you for each one of the councilmen and women and the staff that makes our city great. Father, may your grace, may your wisdom be on each one of them, that everything that is talked about today be just a wisdom that comes from you upon their hearts and upon their lives, Father, for the blessing of our community, Father. We ask your presence upon them. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Please stand, face the flag, place your right hand over your heart, and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agency Secretary, will you please call the roll of the successor agency?
Yes, Chair. Agency members Marcena,
Present.
Cortez,
Present.
Flores,
Present.
Vice Chair Chavez,
Present.
and Chair Polito.
Present. We will now move to the first item on the agenda. Public participation is now open. Agency Secretary, would you please announce the instructions for public participation?
Yes, there are 0 written comments have been submitted for the successor agency. The members of the public will now have the opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the chair and agency members. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Written comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by pressing *9 when instructed. Press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. I'll begin with the first speaker. Host, would you please let Laura in?
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Laura. I'm speaking for item number 13 tonight. I have lived in Bell Gardens my whole life. I have been a renter and I'm a property owner with tenants in this city. I'm commenting today to ask
I
that
can't hear.
support tenants
Let her finish and then I'll.
in creating robust tenant protection policies that include 3% rent control cap, just
I
cause,
can't hear
and
you.
other protections.
Mm-mm.
I have attended the workshops by the city. It's heartbreaking that families who work hard every day are being evicted without cause and rents are being increased by $200, $500, $800 regularly. These community members with shame and despair have been vulnerable with you, with us, in hopes that their community will step up. And I hope you all take the trust they are giving you seriously. I'm sure that realtors and developers are challenging this policy as it would impact their marketing and possibly their income. I could talk for hours about how the state law that exists is an anti-gouging law, which does not do enough to protect tenants, or that it is a myth that rent control will hurt housing values, or that landlords would not get a fair rate of return with this policy. I will not focus on that because the ad hoc committee has discussed this at length with expert feedback challenging these false narratives. My ultimate point here is these realtors and developers are not your constituents. Your constituents are asking you to protect tenants and to see them also as people deserving of rights.
Yeah. This is for the successor agency.
Ma- To the speaker, Laura, have you completed your comments?
Yes.
Okay, I just, going forward, if there's anybody right now waiting to provide public comment on the rent control item, that is going to be heard as part of the city council agenda. Currently, we are on the successor agency agenda. So if you'd like to comment on the rent control, if you could wait probably another 10 minutes or so until we get to the regular city council meeting agenda. And that's where the item on rent control is. Okay?
Quick question. This is Laura.
Sure.
So then do I have to repeat my comment or is my comment already?
No,
taken?
what we'll do, Laura, is we will incorporate your comment
Okay, thank
into
you.
the record as part of the item on the city council agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next speaker, we have a 323 number. We let him in.
You make sure they're not calling on the rent control. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Claudia Castañeda, and my comment is also towards the rent control issue. I'm an owner, so I guess I would my
Ma'am,
comment.
Ma'am, can you call back when we get to the city council agenda? Right now, we're on the successor agency agenda, and that item does not appear on the successor agency agenda. So if you could just stay on the line, give us about 5 or 10 minutes. We're going to get through the successor agency meeting agenda very quickly.
I'll be here. Thank
Okay,
you so
thank
much.
you so much. Okay.
The next speaker is Megan Ebner.
Is it for rent control?
I don't
Why
know.
don't you call him and see if he wants to talk about rent control and then let him know?
It is rent control.
It is rent control? Okay. So we'll just, do we have any, next one? Do we have any comments on the successor agency agenda? Do you know?
I don't know. You can't really tell.
Okay.
They just
call
raise
on
their
and ask
hand.
them if they want to comment on the successor agency agenda. If not, refer them to.
If you'd like to comment on the successor agency, please raise your hand. If not, if you're commenting on the rent control, the city council meeting will start following this meeting. Okay, one left. Okay. Okay, that's all the comments.
If there's no objection by the agency members, I will close public participation. We will now move to the consent calendar. Does any member of the agency wish to pull an item for separate discussion? I will now call for motion to approve the items on the consent calendar.
Go ahead and second.
so you second.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't motion to approve? I'll go ahead and motion to approve the items on the consent calendar.
May I have a second?
Cortez seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Agency Secretary, will you please conduct roll call vote?
Yes, Chair. Agency members Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chavez,
Yes.
and Chair Polito.
Yes. We will now move to public participation for non-agenda items. Public participation is now open. Agency Secretary, are there any speakers?
There are no written comments that have been submitted. The members of the public will now have the opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the chair and agency members. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Written comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by pressing *9. When instructed, press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. I'll begin with the first speaker. I see there is one. There are a couple of speakers.
Mayor, before we do that, I just want to make sure that the speaker that's on the line right now would like to comment on the successor agency agenda, which we're still on. If the speaker would like to comment on the rent control item, we will get to that portion of the agenda probably in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So is the speaker on the phone?
Okay, that's all. No comments.
If there's no objection by the city council, I will close public participation. Does any member wish to make a comment? If there's no objection by the successor agency, I will adjourn the successor agency meeting at 6:20 and call to order the city council meeting. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, April 11, 2022, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Garden City Council. The meeting will not come to order. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, please be advised that members of the Bell Garden City Council may participate in today's meeting telephonically. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any city council member should have a conflict of interest, virtually please leave the room by turning off video and muting yourself. You may still continue listening to the meeting. City Clerk, will you please call the roll of the City Council?
Present.
Cortez present. Present.
Chavez
Present.
and Mayor Polito.
Present. Legal counsel, can you please provide us with a report regarding the closed session items?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The City Council and the successor agency recessed into closed session, all members being present to discuss the 4 items appearing on tonight's agenda for the City Council and the sole item on the successor agency agenda. With respect to item 1 on the City Council agenda, the City Council received a briefing from outside counsel Gary Basio on the status of the case. Feedback was provided, but no final action was taken. With respect to item 2 on the City Council agenda, the City Council received an update from City Manager Mike O'Kelly on the status of negotiations with the Police Officers Association, but no final action was taken. With respect to item 3 and 4, the City Council conducted a brief evaluation and discussion of the City Manager's job performance and compensation, but did not take any final action in closed session. With respect to the sole item under the successor agency agenda, the successor agency received a report from the city's designated representatives. Feedback was provided, but no final action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the presentation. City Manager, will you please introduce the presentation?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Polito. I'm going to turn it over to our Community Development Director, Gus Romo, for the first presentation. Thank you, Gus.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I would like to once again thank you for the opportunity of presenting and providing the opportunity for all our small businesses to get a grant here with the City of Bell Gardens. We have another recipient that was successful in the process, who we have here with us today, Mr. Troy Hernandez. I'd like to have him come up. Mr. Troy Hernandez is the owner of El Sunsal Pupuseria here in Bell Gardens, which I'm sure many of you know and have eaten at. And I'd like to go ahead and have him say a few words for us. We have a check that we'd like to present him, as we've done with others, in the amount of $10,000. So thanks to our City Council and the City of Bell Gardens community, this is made possible to our grant recipient, Mr. Troy Hernandez here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sure. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of you guys for this opportunity for us to, small business owners, for us to keep on thriving and keep on growing. We've been with the city prior to El Sunsal. We were called Gardens Type Barbecue, and we have been in business with the City of Bell Gardens 20-some plus years. Fortunately, this past year, my father passed away due to health issues, and we were in the process of swapping out different type of dishes for the community here in Bell Gardens. I just really want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for you guys done. I know it's been stressful days, but definitely appreciate this. Hopefully this little generosity will help me continue to keep afloat and to keep being open with you guys for the future. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Do any members of the council have any comments or? Yes, Mayor.
Madam Mayor,
Go.
if I may.
Yes.
I just want to thank you for what you do in our community, bringing delicious food to our residents. And, my condolences in regards to your father. My father recently passed away as well. Can you tell me what the address of your business is?
Sure. The address is 6634 Eastern Avenue, Gardens, California, 90201. We're actually in between Gage and Florence, right off Eastern Boulevard.
Great.
All the way from Lubeck, right in the corner, right across the street from El Pescador.
Nice. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And, for any of the residents that are watching, feel free to go and enjoy some delicious food and support local businesses.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. You guys have a good evening.
Mayor, may I?
Sure.
I just want to thank you for being here with us tonight. I offer my condolences, for the loss of your father. I'm sure you've had a very hard year. So we hope that with this grant, we're able to help you just a little bit to keep your business afloat, because in turn, you're helping our city. So we want to congratulate you, for having a business in our community, and hopefully you stay open for many, many years. And yes, as Councilmember Barcena said, please go and visit them. They're right across from El Pescador on Eastern, and go eat some, food, delicious food, pupusas, right?
Right.
So we'll be joining you soon too, but thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'd also like to echo my colleagues. Congratulations on the success of your business. Being here for that many years is not easy, and I'm sure you've seen many restaurants come and go. So thank you for choosing our city and for providing our residents with delicious meals. For everybody on the line, es una pupusería que está entre la Loveland y la Gage, al lado donde está, creo que, una mueblería, right? Hasta donde está la mueblería, puro ladito. I've been there before, as you can tell. I love food. So, después ordenamos pupusas con usted. And so, everybody on the line, por favor, hay que apoyar a nuestra gente latina de aquí de Bell Gardens y hay que seguirlos apoyando por comprarles comida. Que acabo comemos a todos modos, ¿verdad? Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, if we can ask for a photo opportunity.
Oh, yes, of course.
Mayor Polito, after the small business grant, April is Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. And every year the city issues a proclamation to acknowledge those with autism and to encourage people to help those with autism to reach their full potential.
Since 1970, the month of April has been designated to spread awareness about autism spectrum disorders, which is a complex developmental disability that affects everyone differently and usually appears by age 2 or 3. The City of Bell Gardens would like to proclaim the month of April as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month and encourage residents to become aware of autism indicators, seek early intervention, and support those living with autism. We have a proclamation right here.
Mayor Polito, also April is National Donate Life Month. This is where the city encourages people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors, and also to honor those that have saved lives through the gift of donation that they've given as well.
Mayor,
Council-
could you, are you gonna read that? I wanted to make a comment on autism before we move forward.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yes, so I want to talk a little bit about Autism Awareness Month and just to remind everybody that it's not just a personal experience for some, it's a personal experience for all of us, even if we, don't have it, because we all know somebody with autism. I think the statistics right now, about 1 in every 55 kids are diagnosed with autism. And today we have a lot of adults that were never diagnosed with autism. And as a result, we're looking at this epidemic that is looked at different, and they grew up a little weird, or whatever the terms were used back in the day, and as a result they have faced a lot of discrimination. So as we move forward and bringing awareness that autism is in fact something that we should all know about, something that we all have a responsibility to make sure that we make members of the autism family feel welcomed and accepted everywhere, and to fight against them continuing to be discriminated against schools. They're discriminated in schools and stores, and we have to make sure that we keep that fight and we continue to bring awareness to it. The families that have fought against discrimination for autism is a battle that they cannot do alone. They need our assistance. I'm sorry, this is really personal for me. Obviously, we're not all neuroscience doctors, so I'm not exactly sure what words to use when it's this personal for me, but I do believe that we should all become educated, and in doing so, we'll become more compassionate, and know that we have to make sure that we're all giving everybody the opportunity to have a healthy city to live in. And one of the ways to do that is to continue to bring these awarenesses for all the families that are in need of support from other community. So I just wanted to say that. I don't want it to just pass off as something like that. It's very personal and very important for all of us. So thank you so much for making sure that we continue to bring awareness to autism, not just to our mayor, but to the entire council, because I know that we all take this very seriously. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to read this proclamation in honor of National Donate Life Month. This is a very personal issue. 5 years ago, I lost an aunt. She was placed on life support. And with her organ donations, we were able to help 5 families. So this is for Olivia Cortez. Whereas organ, eye, tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need. And whereas more than 108,000 individuals nationwide and more than 21,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant waiting list. On average, 17 people die each day while waiting. And whereas the need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic, Latino, and African American communities, and a single individual's donation of heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, and small intestine can save up to 8 lives. And a donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of more than 75 others. And deceased organ donors saved more than 33,000 lives last year, the most ever. And any person can register to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor regardless of age and medical conditions. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that Mayor Maria Pulido and the City of Bell Gardens, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April as DMV Donate Life Month in the City of Bell Gardens, and encourage all Californians to check yes online or when applying for renewing their driver's license ID card at the DMV. Proclaim this 11th day of April 2022. Make sure you sign up to donate life.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to approve items numbers 1 to 12 on the consent calendar?
Moved, Cortez.
Is there a second?
Second first.
City Clerk, will you please conduct roll call vote?
Mayor Polito. Right. Okay, she got it. Okay.
My apologies. I need to backtrack a little bit. We will now move to the next item on the agenda. Public participation is now open for items listed on the agenda. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 132 written comments that were submitted. The members of the public will now have the opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the City Council. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Within written comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by pressing *9 when instructed. Press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. I'll begin with the first speakers. We've got about 3 speakers that would like to speak that have risen their hands. 4, 5, 6 now. 323-216-7113. Could you please let them in? Good evening.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You can go ahead and make your comments to the City Council.
Yes, my name is Silvestre Noyola, and I'm against having the rent control in the city of Bell Gardens, because the tenants, tenants break the rules, the contract every single day. You have signs posted on the driveways saying the parking is only for the tenants. Well, the tenants let all their family that come and visit them to park inside their premises. And you cannot be telling everyone or watching or spying on everybody not to let them in because they're not supposed to go in. I mean, they still go in. They just go in. They don't respect the signs that you have posted on the driveways. So, and then, they babysit their kids or other people's kids, and they just drive in, like it was their property. They don't respect anything. So on that, I disagree having the rent control, because I don't think it's fair. Then everything is sewer line gets clogged up because they have diapers they throw wipes on the toilets, and they go into the sewer line, and they don't care. They don't take care of the property. So on that, I disagree on having rent control on the city of Bell Gardens. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Mayor, Madam Clerk, members of City Council, before we move on to the next comment, because we have so many public comments for tonight, I'd recommend that we limit public comment to 2 minutes per person. So anybody on the phone who is about to provide public comment, we're going to allow you to speak for 2 minutes. And then when we get to the written comments, we will do the same thing with the written comments. Thank you.
Okay. The next speaker is Megan Edner. Would you please let her?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I am speaking on the rent control item. Dear council members, I am speaking as an owner of 4 residential units in the city of Bell Gardens. In my time owning these units, I have only ever had one family move out. I have been diligent in keeping the property up, have made improvements that benefit the quality of life for my tenants, and I have kept my rents reasonable and below market value. The first speaker tried to paint us as realtors and developers, but we are not all realtors and developers. Many of us are small owners, like myself, small mom and pop landlords, and we are actually small businesses in your community providing housing for community members. After 2 years of being financially slammed by COVID restrictions, moratoriums, and business closures and lost rent, the proposal of this highly restrictive and unbalanced rent control law has me concerned. With the proposal, the only allowable increase is between 0 to 3% at 50% of CPI. This will not even allow owners to keep up with inflation. This means owners are set on a path to lose money over time. Additionally, most of the units in the city are already covered under the California statewide rent control ordinance, which limits increases to 5% plus CPI. The previous speaker spoke of $200 to $800 increases. That is not allowed under the statewide rent control, which already applies in the city to anything built after 15 years. It also has just cause protection for our tenants. We already have a fairly robust tenant protection policy covering our units. I truly believe this proposed law is a mistake and will harm the city's residents and housing stock over time. These restrictive regulations.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Cosapicio Palo Sala. Be letting.
I can promote them to panelists because they're using an older version of Zoom.
Shall we go to the next?
Yeah.
The next speaker is MCV.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, City Council. This comment is on behalf of California Latinas for Reproductive Justice. Over 928 residents have signed the petition urging you to pass the recommendations proposed by us in the Unión de Vecinas de Bell Gardens. Over 80 have taken a huge step of bravery and shared the public comments just today, explaining why they need your support now. More than 30 local business owners have signed on as well. We urge you to move forward with this ordinance and pass urgent ordinance today to protect those who landlords will rush to evict them and hike up rents before protections go into effect. For far too long, tenants, especially those who are undocumented, immigrants, elderly, single parents, and children, have suffered from lack of equal protections and from exploitation from abusive landlords. Good landlords already follow basic practices like fair increases and reasonable evictions. So most of whom you will hear from in opposition are greedy property owners who do not even live in Bell Gardens and believe that they are entitled to limitless profits at the expense of those who have less. While some landlords will complain about diminished returns and smaller profits, there are people going hungry, living in their cars, showering in gyms, giving up college careers, neglecting life-saving healthcare, sharing one-bedroom apartments with 5 people, sacrificing their health and well-being to survive to see tomorrow. There are parents working 2 to 3 jobs, sacrificing their lives and time with their children in order to pay someone else's mortgage. Everyone is suffering impacts of inflation and rising costs, but objectively, those without property and rental income are suffering more. So why are landlords the only ones entitled to income under economic crisis? Why are people who already have more entitled to continued increase in income? Why the rest who lose wages and sacrifice human needs are not being heard is what I'm asking you today.
Excuse me.
You are charged with ensuring the well-being of your
community. Your time is up.
The majority of tenants in BG. Many landlords will come out and urge against these.
The next speaker is Maurice Zepeda. Good evening.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yes, my name is Maurice. I own property within the city of Bell Gardens, and I have leased and rented property within the city of Bell Gardens. I have been through eviction, I have been homeless with my family, and I have had to work my way through life. I have now, after 20 years of hard work, I have acquired property within Bell Gardens, and I am now a landlord. I strongly disagree with this ordinance. This will be absolutely raising the rental cost to the tenant, to the customer, which is the tenant. You will absolutely raise the rent for them. The moment that you make it more expensive to have attorneys, to have red tape that we must deal with, okay, and the harder you make it, there will be more and more costs associated with rental problems or with rent problems. Also, I see that there's one certain class of people trying to be protected, teachers. Why? We have a ton. We have elderly, we have all kinds of people with sickness, people that have been injured. Why do one class get over another class preference? Also, I disagree with it. There's a lot of maintenance that goes into property and a lot of red tape that goes already into property. So I urge the council to represent the people and actually allow everybody, us, the small mom and pop shops also, to keep our rents lower by reducing red tape. And if the county would cut their taxes, that would also definitely be able to be passed on to the tenant. But if you do this and you pass this kind of rent control, you will absolutely be hurting. One other thing, I have planned $5 to $10 million.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker is Matthew William Guerra. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I am a new property owner in the city of Bell Gardens, and I am opposed to any rent control that is different from what the state already has, because contrary to popular belief, rent control hurts the people that it is intended to help. According to the United States Census Bureau, we need to build over 800,000 new homes in California over the next 7 to 8 years to catch up with our growing population. I understand the costs of everything are rising, from food to gas to labor and other services. Rent control will reduce the overall demand of housing in the cities or housing stock in the city. Properties will deteriorate instead of becoming nicer, because landlords will not be incentivized to have the means to keep up with their properties. This will lead to owners selling and developers who will build only condos and will further reduce the housing supply instead of growing it. In order to grow the housing supply, we need to incentivize property owners in the city, not punish them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lincoln Fraga. Good evening.
Good evening, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to speak pretty fast because I have a lot of points I want to cover. So the young lady that spoke before, said that everyone is suffering from inflation in Bell Gardens. It's true, but including us landlords. I own 3 little houses in Bell Gardens and everything has gone up. Plumbing costs have gone up, gardening costs have gone up, wood has gone up, all of it has gone up. And so we are all suffering from inflation. And you want to expand restrictions. I don't understand what restrictions you would expand. It's like if they don't pay rent, they get to stay there, or if there are problems to other tenants, do they get to stay there? If they break their rental contract, do they get to stay there? It's already difficult and very costly and lengthy process to evict a tenant. You lose a lot of money when that happens. I try to keep my tenants. I have one tenant on the property that's been on the property for 40 years. She's the grandchildren of the tenant that originally was there. So I try to keep my tenants and I keep them happy. These decisions are not made lightly. Actually, a cost increase it helps you beautify the property. You're able to build walls and you're able to do windows. Okay, so when I first bought in Bell Gardens, I remember it was a bad area. I lived around drug addicts, and I would find needles in my front yard, and there were gang members. As the cost of rents went up, those people were replaced by better people, by better quality people. And now I walk my little neighborhood and I'm like, wow, I could actually walk around here at night. You know, it's not filled with a bunch of drug addicts paying $200 a month. So rental increases also help us landlords fix. I just put all new windows in my units, and I was able to do that because I have increased the rents over the years. And so it betters the life for my tenants. And so also, we landlords are the ones
Thank
that.
you for your comments, sir.
Okay.
Your time is up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is, got a phone number of 323-326-3596. Hello? Hello?
Press star 6.
Suzanne?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can address the council now.
Oh, hi, good evening. My name is Claudia Castañeda, and I'm the landlord of 2 units in the city of Bell Gardens. My concern with this rent control is that a lot of tenants that like to take advantage of landlords will do so. Like I say, I haven't increased my rent in the units for the past 4 or 5 years. I have all long-term tenants, and this ordinance is just going to bring a lot of stress into us. A lot of us as small business owners, this is all we have. We won't be able to keep up with the increases of taxes, water, all kinds of utilities that we're paying for. And, everything inflation has gone up 8%, and they're suggesting a 3%. So where do we supposed to get the rest from? Also, whatever addition that we do, everything is more costly every day. They're not the only ones suffering. We are suffering too. We work jobs just like they do. We're not investors. We're small business owners. This is going to lead to people losing the properties. It's going to lead to foreclosure and investors buying those properties. When that people buy those properties, they're first-time owners. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to raise the rent to the market value, and the rent increase, whatever, is not going to apply to them. If they were to see it and think this through, this is just going to affect the city, the current people living there. This doesn't benefit anybody in the long run. I implore you to please look at this and consider us as small business owners that have invested every single penny that we have into a property where we'll lose absolute control over it. It is hard as it is. We're in the borderline. My husband and I, we might not be able to afford the taxes this coming year. It keeps going up. And if we're not able to even raise $50, $40, give my unit.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is 562 number 264-6827. 56. Did you get that? Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
You can state your comments before the council right
yes.
now.
Good evening. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council body of the City of Bell Gardens. My name is Aldo Paz. I'm a property manager in the City of Bell Gardens. I'm calling to support no on rent control because such measure will in fact hurt tenants instead of helping them. Why? Firstly, most property owners in Bell Gardens are mom and pop who have kept rents below market. In the case of my clients who have not raised rents in many years. Some of our tenants are still paying below $500 per month. As such, approving even an attempt to do so will prompt raising rents throughout the city in the immediate future, thus having the reverse effect of what proponents are expecting to achieve. Please leave the free market forces to regulate pricing by increasing supply, not choking up property owners' rights. No rent control for the city of Bell Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Mikkel Adams.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank
I just
you.
want to bring up the law of unintended consequences that will come in. I'm against this proposal is coming through. We have to remember that as we raise these prices, as we try to control rent, the people that we're going to affect, as many people have already said, worst are the tenants, but also the owners as well. But we're missing the point that with the tax increases that don't take into account rent control that happen when they happen, we have to account for that. We have to account for repairs, the economy, as it changes, the cost of materials, the cost of labor, all these things change and go up, and we can't predict those. No greedy landlord is going to stay in business for very long. You have to work with your tenants, especially as a small business. But the biggest thing we're gonna see from this is many of the owners are going to be forced to sell to larger businesses because they can't afford to keep their buildings. And the larger businesses aren't going to be as interested in working with the tenants or in keeping them in place. They'll be able to take the properties and work around or absorb some of the losses by the other properties they own, which a small landlord can't do. They have to work with their tenants. They have to have a good relationship. That's what I wanted to bring up. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is X. Hello?
Hello,
Hello. You can go ahead and state your comments.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hello. My name is X and I strongly support the rent control, a cap 3% on rent increases, and allow renters to be able to live comfortably in this land. I strongly oppose what landowners have said. Let me remind everyone that no one owns the land, no one owns the water, no one owns nothing on this land. This was given to us by Creator. Only by the hands of the greedy does the land require a fee. We must remember where we came from. We must remember that at one point, there was no such thing as rent until we were colonized. Then the idea of land ownership came to about. We must remember that we are all one. We must remember that we are all related, and we must treat each other as brothers and sisters. This division is gross and is mind-blowing that we're at this point in era and this time that we're fighting for things that we shouldn't fight about. Everyone should be entitled to 7 acres of land. Everyone should be entitled to seeds to be able to grow a garden and to be able to sustain their family. Everyone should have fresh water because the water that comes from San Gabriel Mountains that flow through the rivers, the LA River that is running through Bell Gardens, that is now Concrete River, once was a flowing and thriving river that everyone was entitled to drink fresh water from. We must remember this and we must treat each other as such. Modern day, now where we're at, now people are getting pushed out of their communities. People that can't afford are now subjected to this treatment by each other because we're all related, right? So we must remember that, and we must honor Mother Nature and honor the land.
Thank
and we
you
must
for your
unite
comments,
to
sir.
fight issues that really matter, and that's pollution, and that's all these.
Sir, your time's up. Thank you, sir. The next speaker is a phone number with 562-418-9753.
Good evening, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead and state your comments.
Yeah. Fortunately, I'm a property owner, and my parents were property owners, and we don't treat tenants or raise their rents. You know, our rents are pretty stable. And with this new law that is trying to restrict the 3% plus eviction notice that has to go through the city of Bell Gardens, that's kind of ridiculous. Us as an owners, there's a lot of expenses, like I've been hearing those comments. And by allowing the tenants to do this, will take advantage of our possessions. Now, I work with my tenants. For example, one of my tenants now doesn't pay me the rent on time, gives me money like every other week. I don't have a problem as long as he pays me. However, if this law passes, that 3% control, that I'm pretty sure she's going to take advantage of the situation and not pay. And, you know, that brings a point. So I vote no and try to consider owners, you know, as a small business. So no on rent control and consider us, you know, the good landlords, not these landlords. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Baron McLemore.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead and state your comments to the council.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Baron McLemore. We operate a multifamily complex in the city. I just wanted to point out to everyone requesting rent control and additional ordinances be in place that the state currently already has a statewide rent control under AB 1482. That was enacted in 2020. So it's not like as if it is an old ordinance or one that is not up to date with the time. So that ordinance currently allows 5% increases plus whatever the CPI rate for that year and the previous year was. The nonprofit that's currently recommending 50% of CPI or max of 3% isn't even half of what the 2021 through 2022 inflation rate was. It doesn't even come close to being a goodwill or fair deal offer. It is just simply unacceptable, and it would not even keep up with anywhere near the rise of costs that landlords have experienced over the last several years, and that they currently see increase every single year thereafter. CPI just for our area alone is being pegged at somewhere between 7 and 9% over the last 15 months, which is 3 times what the individual group is looking at enacting. The state has also prevented evictions during this time through COVID. That includes non-payment of rent issues. We alone have several tenants that have in 5 or 6 months, and the state has yet to respond to a single assistance request. We have several that are 4 and 5 months in, and there's been no response by the state, and therefore we're not allowed to evict. We're not allowed to move forward or do anything of the like. I would ask, you know, what percentage of tenants not paying rent is found to be acceptable by the city council? And why should there be individual groups of people chosen to have exclusive protections that are not offered to everybody else? Currently, the proposal is looking to give protection to just teachers and students. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker has phone number 562-417-0690. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello. You can state your comments before the council right now.
Thank you very much. My name is Alfonso Campos. I'm also a landlord. I own a few units in the city of Bell Gardens. I truly believe, I would ask that you consider what's being proposed as to not being something that's lucrative for anybody. Repairs have gone up anywhere from 15 to 25%. Material is 20%. Insurance, I can show paper that back what I'm saying. I have an insurance policy that I paid 2 years ago, $2,200. Last year I paid $2,570, and today I paid $2,870. That's an increase of 12%. It's a little bit under 12%. And with all these costs that are going, nobody is stopping the expenses that the landlords receive. And at the same time, they want to accommodate the tenant from not paying. We are also victims of inflation. All of our expenses are up, and all we're asking is when the rent goes up, all it does is cover the delta that we have from the current expense to the present expense. And, you know, the expenses as they go up, that we cover them. That's all we're looking for. Nobody's getting rich off of this. In most cases, we are small. We're not even a small business. We are supplementing our income. We worked all our lives to have an extra unit that we could supplement our income with. Because Social Security is not enough. That's all we're doing. So that's all I got to say, and I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Omar Sines. Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I'd like to put in my 2 cents on this rent control ordinance. Number one, I'm a mom and pop owner. My dream has always been to own property so that I could pass it on to my kids and they could be financially stable. California already has a rent control ordinance that is pretty strict and fair. During this pandemic, landlords were the ones that were left out to dry. Right after the pandemic ended, we were hit with inflation. And not only that, just in September, the Bell Gardens water rates went up dramatically. And by the time they're done, I believe they're going to be up 500% what they were before. And that's being paid by landlords. This is unfair. I think the propositions are ridiculously one-sided. 0 to 3% it's not fair. You know, this area, if this goes through, this area is going to start looking like Compton and Watts, because there's not going to be money to beautify the city. And if that's what, unfortunately, that sounds like that's what people want. You know, like I moved here and I put new windows, a new fence, new yard. Everyone has complimented me on the work I've done. It's motivated others to do the same. And that's been happening by keeping my rents at market rate. That's all I had to say. We're just mom and pops, and like the first speaker who painted us all as developers, there is no developing in Bell Gardens. This is not a gentrifying city. We are all working class landlords as well. And I would like to just voice my opinion and no on rent control. Enough is enough. California already has a statewide rent control. No need to make it harder on hardworking landlords. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jessica. Hello, Jessica. Hello? Hello, Jessica? Hello, Jessica? We'll go to the next one. Letitia Adams is our next speaker.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone for taking their time to being in this meeting. And so I just want to state that I'm actually the daughter of a landlord. My parents work extremely hard to purchase their property rentals that they have in the city of Bell Gardens. And it was through her hard work that they own it. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they're greedy landlords or they're trying to take advantage of the tenants. They have a right to make a profit, just like everybody else in any profession or in any business. With that being said, because my parents have always had a love for the community and for the tenants, they haven't raised their property rentals in over 10 years. My parents actually have tenants that are paying $900, $800, $1,000 per month, which is way under the market value. And so with this rent control, it's actually hurting the landlords. It's hurting the opportunity and the possibility to make improvements on their property. Everything is going up. Not only are repairs, just as other people have mentioned, the water bills, everything is going up. And it's making it more difficult for them to be able to actually make improvements on their property. So I'm just making my statement is that landlords are entitled to make a profit, just like everybody else. And secondly, there doesn't mean that because you become a landlord makes you greedy. And so I just want to emphasize that rent control is already in place in the state. An additional rent control is not necessary. And I just think that, like the other speaker had mentioned, this is completely one-sided, and I am against rent control. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Jerry.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for the time, and I appreciate the council hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions. One of the things I would like to approach this is just sharing my thoughts on being both sides of the fence as a homeowner and being involved with property ownership for my family, and a renter as well. In fact, I'm living in Utah renting. I understand what it's like to be on both sides. And one of the things that people don't understand when homeownership is involved are, the expenses involved in maintenance and so forth. And one of the goals of ownership is to try to make a living as well. And so the ordinances like this with, rent control, it really is inhibiting the ability to maintain a business while meeting the demands of city ordinances, of properly maintaining property and not violating codes and so forth. It's really expensive. And so even as someone that rents property, currently, I mean, there's a lot of expenses I do not assume that the homeowner assumes here. And fortunately, where I live, the homeowner actually is very kind to us, and I go back and forth and do work with them because I do it because I respect the fact that there is expenses that that they have to cover. It's just because I've been on both sides of the fence. So one of the things I just want to caution to the city as a take this ordinance into consideration is understanding that it is expensive, and people do want to run a business, and to be able to continue with making Bell Gardens a great place, allow the market to work more in a free market way, because I know a lot of homeowners.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Yeah, and just all right, thank you. And that's really all I want to say. Just understanding it's both sides of the fence. Just respecting the fact that these rental property owners, they're just trying to make a living too.
Thank you. The next speaker is Michelle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead and state your comments to the council.
Good evening, everyone. I just was calling to finish our comment from California Latinas for Reproductive Justice and share a couple other thoughts. I just wanted to reiterate that the council is charged with ensuring the well-being of its constituents, the majority, supermajority of whom are tenants, and many landlords are coming out, as we knew they would, to talk against these just and fair laws, and oftentimes without right laws, right? Going as far as illegally using the city logo to mislead the community. But we, the Unión de Vecinas, have shown you the research and the facts. The vecinas have been in the ad hoc committee advocating and talking to their neighbors for over a year, collecting signatures. There's almost 1,000 people who have signed the petition. There are over 30,000 tenants in your city. They have done so much work to make this community a better, safer place with a lot of research and a lot of statistics, and it's all backed. So we hope that you'll ignore the landlord's lies and listen instead to the people you're in this position to serve, because these are the people of Bell Gardens. This is Bell Gardens. And we're going to see in the coming months where each of you stand, and everyone will notice. So we really hope that you stand with what is right, what's moral, and that you don't cave to the pressure of those who are mostly interested in profit. We acknowledge that there are good landlords, and those landlords show themselves when they say that they don't raise rents in an exaggerated way. And so a lot of these protections are really just equalizing the playing field. They're just putting into law things that are already right and accepted by good landlords. And I also just wanted to comment that in a lot of cities in California, in 2021, just a year ago, rent control was 2.7%, 2%, 1.7%. In Los Angeles, it was 4%. In
Thank you
Berkeley,
for your comments. The next speaker is Steve Lang.
It's on.
Hello.
He's muted. We're asking him to be. We can move to the next one. Move to the next one. Yeah.
The next one is 562-417-0690. Hello? Hello?
Hmm?
Yes.
Hello.
You can
Yes, I
state
think
your
there's
comments.
yes, I think there's a confusion. I already spoke. Not
You
sure
already
how it's coming.
spoke? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry if it's
You can only
on my end.
speak once. No problem.
Yes,
Have
no,
a good
I'm probably
evening.
screwed it up on my end.
Okay. Thank you, sir. The next one is Estela Mata.
Mayor, members of the city council.
Yeah. ¿Aló?
Yes, Estela, can you give me one
Buenas
second?
tardes.
Give me 1 second, Estela. Ms. Mata.
Okay.
At this time, the city council will no longer accept any more public comments via Zoom. We will be reading the written comments that were submitted prior to tonight's meeting. So at this time, I believe we have 7 more callers. We will not be accepting any other callers after these 7 individuals are heard from. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Mata.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Estela Mata. Yo vivo en la ciudad de Bell Gardens por 25 años y el dueño me ha subido mucho la renta, me subió $200 en julio, en diciembre me subió $400. El dueño no me arregla, no ha arreglado nada. Incluso también yo le he dicho que hay veces que he tenido ratones porque otro inquilino junta metal y entonces todo eso lo vacían y lo vuelve a llenar. Entonces cuando trae el troque el vecino lleno de puro metal, allí salen ratones y se me van para mi casa. Y yo ya le he dicho al dueño y el dueño no quiere hacer nada. Al dueño le digo que me arregle y no quiere. Yo tengo de que la alfombra por más de 20 años y tampoco no me ha cambiado la alfombra. Yo compro alfombras y las pongo arriba de la otra. El zinc también, el zinc de la cocina lo tengo también, con unos botes por abajo del tubo para que no se salga el agua. Y nosotros pagamos el agua. Los dueños que están diciendo que en Bell Gardens ellos pagan el agua, no es cierto. En Bell Gardens nosotros cada quien pagamos el agua, pagamos luz, pagamos todo. Los dueños no quieren pagar agua, los dueños tienen un medidor en cada casa. Ellos puran mentiras, ellos no pagan el agua.
Gracias,
Y también
señora.
he tocado muchas puertas de mis
Señora.
amigos, de mis amigas, y
Señora.
también ellas dicen que los dueños no les arreglan.
Next caller is calling user 1. Hello?
Good evening, City Council. Hello.
Okay. Hello, go ahead and state
Hello?
your comments.
Yes, good evening, City Council and concerned landlords and tenants. I'm calling to request the council not to proceed with the proposed ordinance. I have been a landlord. I own a couple of units in Bell Gardens for the past 10 years. And I try to keep my tenants as long as I can. Some tenants are good, some are not, as we all know. And but for the most part, I keep them all. I have regarding California Latinas for Reproductive Justice. Michelle, do you even live in Bell Gardens? I don't think you do. I think a lot of these people do not live in Bell Gardens. They're not aware of what's going on in Bell Gardens. If you do pass this ordinance, my property taxes keep going up. My utility bills keep going up. Tenants leave there and they don't clean, and I lose on deposit. I lose on a lot of stuff. And a lot of these tenants have legal groups that represent them. So they're not dumb about what the laws are or whatever. The majority of tenants will not even complain about the landlords not fixing their houses or whatever, because they don't want the rents to be increased. I don't know who East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice is, or Unión de Vecinas de Bell Gardens. I've never even heard of that. There was a caller named Laura, and she said she is also a landlord and she's a renter, and yet they're trying to take advantage of her. She should know the renter's laws if she's a landlord. So I think she lied about her call. So anyways, I'm calling regarding a lot of the landlords. They're my friends, and I've been there for a long time.
Your time
So
is
we're all
up,
opposed.
ma'am.
Thank you,
Your time's
everyone.
up. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ramona Curel.
Yes, hello.
Yes, hello. Go ahead and state
Hola,
your comment.
buenas tardes. Estoy escuchando los comentarios y quiero decir que yo he vivido en la ciudad por 20 años. Soy dueño de 2 propiedades y las estoy rentando. Y yo apoyo el control de renta. La razón es por esto. Hay buenos vecinos y muchos pagan a tiempo. Ahora, nuestro pago del mortgage no sube cada mes. No sube cada mes. Las reparaciones de las casas, es cierto, se necesitan, pero no las hacemos todos los meses. Es justo que sea equitativo para ambas partes. Estoy de acuerdo con que haya un control de renta. Es verdad que muchos vecinos no desean reparaciones en las casas por lo mismo, porque no desean que se les aumente la... Exacto. Yo estoy de acuerdo con que haya un control para el beneficio de todas las personas, para protección mía como dueño, como para mis inquilinos. Estoy de acuerdo que haya un control de esto y que para que no se hostiguen a otras personas. Durante algún tiempo yo también estuve rentando y se me presionó, me estresé demasiado. Gracias a Dios tuve la oportunidad de poder obtener una propiedad. Entiendo la situación por la que pasan las personas. Mis inquilinos actualmente están contentos conmigo. Trabajo con ellos para las reparaciones del hogar. El que haya un control de renta nos beneficia a todos. Los pagos de los mortgages no aumentan, las reparaciones no las hacemos todos los meses. El aumento que hay en las rentas sí se aplicará a ellos mes tras mes. Es que sería justo que se haya un control. Estoy de acuerdo. Yo lo apoyo.
Then our next speaker is Perez. Hello? We'll go to the next one.
Hi, yes.
Yes, Mr.
Oh,
Perez.
yeah. Hi. Good
Oh,
evening,
hi.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Thank you for your time. My name is Bernice Perez. I do live in the city of Bell Gardens. I am a landlord and owner here. I've been living here for 4 years, and I have not raised up any rents. I'm afraid that what's going to happen if Bell Gardens has a very strict rent control, which once again the state of California already passed a rent control. They already did their homework. They already did whatever they had to do to figure out the number of 5% plus the CPI. I believe if we're any more stricter than that, it's going to force us landlords to raise up the rent on a yearly basis, to basically not fall behind with the cost of living. So I'm not for or against rent control. What I am is for something fair and equal to both renters and landlords. And like I said and mentioned, I feel like the state already did their research and homework when it comes to rent control, the percentage for rent control and the CPI. So I really hope you guys take into consideration, and like other people, landlords also did mention, is it does seem very one-sided. And I hope that you guys start listening to the voices of landlords as well, to help us out, because we are part of the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. The final speaker is Don.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead with your comments, sir.
Hi, thank you for listening tonight. I'm Don Jervis, and I'm part of the ad hoc community. And thank you, council, for hearing all the voices tonight. And I just wanted to say that after our last meeting, we did the outreach. I was really concerned because I discovered there was not any significant outreach to the owners in the community, and it was very driven by the advocates on the tenant side. And when I became aware of that, I talked to the city, and they said that we need to reach out to the people on our own, which we did. And this surge tonight and all these people of concern, they're your constituents also. Hopefully you can hear their voices. They're not billionaires, they're not millionaires. They're local working people that own properties. and they're voting people and their constituents, just like the tenants. And there's a lot of good owners and there's a lot of good tenants. So I'm really happy that you are able to hear from the owner's side tonight as well as the tenants, because during the previous meetings, I just was not aware there was no en masse being reached out to the owners. And so that's why we did what we did. And that's why we're having a surge all of a sudden. But, you know, we could have 1,000 signatures in a short time if that's what was needed. So I really am happy tonight. And thank you for listening to both sides.
Thank you for your comments, sir. That was the final speaker.
Mayor, members of the City Council, at this time, we're going to move on to the written comments that we received on item 13 for rent control. I want to remind the City Council and members of the public that the item tonight appearing on the agenda is not for the City Council to take action on whether or not to approve rent control here in the City of Bell Gardens. The item on tonight's agenda is simply for the City Council to give staff direction on whether or not it would like to move forward with the drafting of a rent control ordinance that would need to come back to the City Council for 2 readings. There'd be a first reading, and at the first reading, members of the public would have the opportunity to provide public comment. There'd also be a second reading, and at the second reading, members of the public would also be entitled to provide public comment. So there are multiple opportunities for members of the public to comment on this item should it move forward here tonight. Given that we have 130 written comments, what I would recommend, Mayor, members of the City Council, would be for the city clerk to, or perhaps the city manager, to read the name of each person that has submitted a written comment tonight and indicate whether or not that person is for or against rent control. And then what we'll do, Mayor, members of the City Council, is incorporate the entire written comment of each person into tonight's record. So if there's no objection, Mayor, by you or the City Council, that would be my recommendation moving forward. Thank you.
Is there a motion to follow our legal counsel's recommendation? Cortez motion. Do we have a second?
City Attorney, I have a quick question. Can you clarify what was the motion again? Sorry about that.
Sure. We've received 130 written comments on the rent control item, which is item number 13 on the City Council agenda. My recommendation is that the city clerk read the name of each person that submitted a written comment on this item and indicate whether or not that person is for or against rent control. And then we incorporate each person's entire comment on this item into tonight's permanent record.
Thank you.
I will second that motion. City Clerk, can you please call the roll of the City Council?
Councilmember Barcena. Councilmember Barcena.
Yes.
Cortez.
Yes.
Flores.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Yes.
And Chair Polito.
Yes.
Mayor Polito, if it pleases the council, I'll begin to read the names. I will say oppose for opposition of a rent stabilization or a rent control ordinance. And I will say support for tenant protections and rent stabilization and rent control ordinance. So I'll start with Elaine Hutchinson, oppose. Rancho Southeast Realtors, oppose. Jessica Pinkney, support. Raul Leon, support. Romelia Garcia, support. Megan Edner, oppose. Russell Apollonio, oppose. Bernie Apollonio, oppose. Diana Alvarado, support. Cosme del Carmen, support. Maria Martha Villanueva, support. Olga Carmona, support. Guadalupe Espinosa, support. Gregoria Espinosa, support. Jorge Espinosa, support. Leticia Rodriguez, support. Teresa Galicia de los Santos, support. Naleli, support. Evangeline Arceo, support. Carla, support. Sandra Marshalley, support. Perla, support. Maria Uribe, support. Eric Gonzalez, support. Alejandro Ponce, support. AT, support. Maria Avalos, support. Raquel Carrillo, support. Maria Barrera, support. Ofelia Flores, support. Martin Garcia, support. Noemi Chacon, support. Virginia Solario, support. Damaris Valle, support. Alma Delio Reyes, support. Raul Garcia, support. Jose Guillermo Milan, support. Irma, support. Rocio Garcia, support. Irene Castellanos, support. Miguel Martinez, support. Andrea, support. Oralia Alamillo, support. Javier Ayala, support. Denise, support. Pedro Hernandez, support. Maria A. Martinez, support. Ana Paredes, support. Rosario Santoyo, support. Nancy Ramos, support. Enrique Garcia, support. Franklin Marroquin, support. Andres Magaña, support. JG, support. Lilia Chavez, support. Carla Gonzalez, support. Maria Estrada, support. Maria Sanchez, support. Ramona Delgado, support. Juliana Asensio, support. Maria Rodriguez, support. Jesus Loreano, support. Ana Loreano, support. Teresa Loreano, support. Irene Flores, support. Marina R, support. Ruth Ramirez, support. Alma Morena, support. Margarita Rodriguez, support. Rosa Guzman, support. Ana Luisa, support. Valentin Lopez, support. JE, support. Bernie Apollonio, oppose. Diana Alvarado, support. Jose Pecio, Paulo Sala, oppose. Whitney Amaya, support. Maria Patino, support. Joseph Bartolo, support. Lilia Chavez, support. Carla Gonzalez, support. Maria Estrada, support. Maria Sanchez, support. Ramona Delgado, support. Juliana Asensio, support. Maria Rodriguez, support. Jesus Loreano, support. Ana Loreano, support. Teresa Loreano, support. Irene Flores, support. Marina R, support. Ruth Ramirez, support. Alma Morena, support. Margarita Rodriguez, Rosa Guzman, support. Ana Luisa, support. Valentin Lopez, support. JE, support. Ana Luisa, support. Diana Rivera, support. Lucia Villalobos, support. Rosalva Asola, support. Maria Martinez, support. Rafael Sanchez, support. Inocencio Cortez, support. Esmeralda Juarez, support. Yolanda Gomez, support. Gabriela Cifuentes, support. Rosa Nandez Carrillo, support. Angela Hernandez, support. Veronica Rosso, support. Maria, support. Angela, support. Francisca Alejo, support. Ana Contreras, support. Helen Apollonio, support. Jasmine Gonzalez, support. Monica Wooters, support. California Latinas for Reproductive Justice, support. Olivia Cayo, support. Sylvia Marroquin, support. Jocelyn Del Real, support. Veronica R, support. And correct me, City Clerk, please, on the last 5 or 6 here. UNK, Maurice Zepeda, Francisco y Guadalupe Jimenez, Steve Lang, Rent Control, Juan Quintana. These are all support.
Do you know? Yeah. Budget cards and support. Hold on one moment.
Okay. If any of the comment cards were in oppose, please state so. Otherwise, they'd be noted as support. We'll confirm with the city clerk. Muted.
They didn't specify on the cards.
So city attorney, these comment cards will be included in the record along with the previous emails as to whether they are support or oppose.
Correct. And I'd also add that city clerk, if you can make sure that the city council, the mayor and the city council receives the full text of each person's written comment, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. In addition to making it part of tonight's record. Thank you.
If there is no objection by the city council, I will close public participation. City manager, will you please give your report?
Thank you, Mayor Polito. I just want to acknowledge on Saturday, we had a spring event. So this is another event that demonstrates our return to a post, somewhat post-COVID environment. It was well attended, celebrates Easter and spring. Also, just want to let people know the Community Family Services Center has assisted and continues to assist Bell Gardens residents with applications for the county's guaranteed income program. The deadline is on Wednesday, so we're helping people fill out those applications, even though it's a county program, not a city program. We mentioned earlier that it is Donate Life Month. So in that vein, we have a blood drive on Thursday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Veterans Park. If you go to our website on our calendar, you can see how you can register for a time to make things quicker. This weekend is yard sale weekend. Also Friday, April 22nd is Earth Day. And so to celebrate Earth Day, we have an event on Saturday, April 23rd from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. To celebrate all things Earth Day. I also want to acknowledge there have been several serious incidents in Bell Gardens over the last few weeks. I've asked the police chief to speak briefly about what's happening and to ensure that the council understands our commitment to keeping Bell Gardens a safe community. If you can please speak, chief.
Yes, thank you, Mr. City Manager and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to update everybody or to give a brief overview of a rough couple of weeks for our city. I want to go back to March 4th. Was one of the first incidents we came across where we had a traffic stop with a individual who had a gun and some narcotics in the car. We then served a search warrant at that individual's home, and that search warrant netted 6 additional guns plus numerous high-capacity magazines and narcotics. And I go over that case plus some others here just to let you all know and to kind of brief the community on the number of guns that are being located and recovered in our community. It's alarming. We thought last year was alarming. This year is even off to a more alarming start. Fast forward to March 16th, where we had the attempted robbery of the mobile phone repair shop, which is illegally operating as a dispensary. We had 4 individuals who attempted to rob the location. During that time, a gunfight took place between the 4 potential suspects who were going to rob the location and the suspects who run the illegal narcotics or marijuana dispensary. 3 individuals were shot. One of those individually, unfortunately, has passed away. The other 2 are fine. We have made 2 arrests on that through a follow-up between ourselves and the sheriff's department. 2 arrests were made. There's probably more arrests pending as we continue to work forward. What I want the community to know and also council to know is this was not an unknown location to our investigators. In the past few years, we've done multiple investigations at the location. We wrote 2 search warrants and arrested the operator owner at that time back in 2018. The individual was on probation, was then charged and then released on bail again, where he could immediately went right back to work and distributing marijuana to our community. We conducted a second investigation, and during that investigation, it should be noted in the first one, we worked with the DA's office in that first incident where we served the 2 search warrants. We then conducted a third investigation where we gathered intel and information to make additional arrests. We contacted the DA's office again at that time, and we were advised that at worst it was going to be a misdemeanor again, and we didn't feel it appropriate to put the city at liability risk and put our officers in the position of serving a narcotic search warrant when the individual was going to be released the next day. March 23rd, we had a carjacking at the casino where 2 suspects followed some individuals and to their vehicle, assaulted and beat one of the victim and the driver of the car. They took his vehicle and some items and fled the location. We've made 1 arrest on that one at this point in time. The next day, March 24th, we had the horrific crime of a 14-year-old being sexually assaulted in a Bell Gardens residence by a local transient here in the city. We made an arrest that night of a 41-year-old Bell Gardens resident. And a few days later, after a press release and contacting neighboring cities, City of Long Beach made an arrest on our main suspect on that. So both those individuals are still in custody, and they've I believe they've gone to court once so far on that. March 25th, the very next day, we had a home invasion where two suspects walked into a victim's house. And I think it's important to bring this one up because they basically told the residents they were selling cell phones. They struck up a conversation and then produced a weapon and entered the home, held the individuals basically hostage in their own house, and took those items. At this time, that is still under investigation, and we have no arrest at this time on that. April 7th, we had an assault with a deadly weapon and then a barricaded suspect. It was a domestic violence type scenario. After several hours of negotiation, we were able to convince the suspect to exit the house, where they were taken into custody without incident. We had another incident where we conducted a traffic stop and took an assault rifle from the vehicle, numerous, I think 5 other weapons, and large quantities of narcotics. Again, taking several more weapons off the street. This year to date, we've taken 41 guns off the streets compared to 34 last year in that same time frame. I can go on with I can answer any questions or give you statistics of whatever else you may want to know, but in consideration of time, I just want to let everybody know that our officers and detectives and personnel are working very hard to maintain a safe community. And we take these crimes very serious, and these officers have been put through, as well as our community members, a lot of pretty horrific incidents these last few weeks. And we're doing everything in our power to see that they come to a stop, and at a minimum that we get these individuals who are committing these crimes on our residents into custody. I can answer any questions if anybody has anything.
Chief, can you also brief us on the hit and run?
Yes, so I believe it was Saturday night at approximately 1:40 in the morning. Our officers are on patrol, and they observed a female laying in the street in front of what is the 6200 block of Eastern, around the area of the Miller Hotel. The individual was struck as she was entering her vehicle on the driver's door. It appears from the video that she saw the vehicle coming and attempted to squeeze up next to her vehicle and was struck. The vehicle continued, obviously hit her vehicle, and a vehicle in front of her failed to slow down or stop and drove off northbound Eastern Avenue. The individual who was struck was transported in critical condition. However, I believe she's doing better. We put out a press release today on that with some video, and we're hoping for the community and the news media to help us in identifying the driver of that vehicle. We have some leads at this time. We believe we're going to solve it. However, we're not there yet.
Thank you so much, Chief. And I just want to say something really quick. I'm really happy that you're coming here and giving us this report. I think it's really important that the community understands the work that the Bell Gardens Police Department is doing to keep our community safe. And it's also a message to anybody out there. For instance, the illegal marijuana shop, clearly they had no interest in doing anything that was anything resonating with abiding by the rules, because you can have a legal shop just over the bridge in Cudahy, in Commerce, Maywood, Lingwood, I mean, anywhere, right? But they chose to illegally do business in our community. And I want this to be a message to anybody else that continues or wants to have that sort of business here in our community, that we have a very active police department that is trying to protect the constituents of this beautiful city. And we're not going to sit back and allow for you guys to create an unhealthy environment for the families that are trying to make better for themselves, right? And for all of the other crimes. And I think, Chief, it's really important that everybody sees the side of you that I see, the side that wants to protect the city of Bell Gardens and does not take crime lightly. The complete opposite. You're the opposite of that man. And I want everybody to hear you and feel how I feel about your job in Bell Gardens, because I think that you take it very seriously. And if there's any criminal out there watching this video, like, take a good look at this chief, because he's not going to let anything go by him. Y a todas las familias que están hoy escuchándonos, ténganlo por seguro que aunque están pasando muchas cosas, no estamos aquí como relajándonos, estamos haciendo mucho trabajo, a lo menos del departamento de policía y con el city manager y yo estamos al tanto de que no esté pasando nada en la ciudad. Y ustedes son los oídos y the eyes and ears of the community. Por favor, reporten todo, porque cuando nosotros nos silenciamos es cuando empiezan a pasar estas cosas. If you know something and you see something, say something. And thank you so much, Chief, and to the entire department, because I know that the success was in collaboration with other cities like Long Beach PD and everybody that tuned in, but that's the kind of community effort that we continue to have and want in our community. So thank you, Chief, and yeah, let's get them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I just have to commend the men and women of the Bell Gardens Police Department for their efforts. Even though in 2020, in 2021, our crime was down 6%, our Part 1 crimes, our arrests was still up by 49%. Our offices are out there doing the job every day, trying to take these violent criminals off the streets and to make our community safe. And I just wanted to commend the job they're doing out there. Thank you.
That's all I have for the city manager report, Mayor Polito. Thank you.
At this time, we will be taking a 15-minute recess period and we'll be returning at 8:10.
Okay, at work at 8, so I've been out of my house since 8 a.m. I'm tired. Maria probably early. What time did you go today? Should be in by half an hour. Is there a way to turn on the AC? Oh wait, we have time.
That's it.
No.
We will now move to the consent calendar.
Mayor Polito, staff would request that item number 7 on the consent calendar be removed from the agenda tonight, be brought back at the next meeting on April 25th for administrative reasons.
Does any member of the city council wish to pull an item for separate discussion? May I have a motion to approve items 1 through 12 with the exception of 7 on the consent calendar?
I'll go ahead and motion to approve.
I'll
items 1
second.
through 12.
City clerk, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Mayor. Council members Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Polito.
Yes. City manager, will you please announce discussion item number 13?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Polito. This item is regarding a rent control update and also a request for direction. I will turn it over to our Community Development Director, Gus Romo, to give a presentation and provide some details regarding this item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Let's put together the slide presentation here. Thank you, Alex. Okay, Mayor, members of the City Council, as you heard from tonight's commentator, people who commented on this item, this is a very sensitive topic for the community, something that we've been working on for the last year through Rent Control Ad Hoc Committee that the City Council had created and reenacted. Tonight, I'm going to give you a little bit of background of where we've been with the rent control item and where we're at today. What we're looking to do today is get direction to either go forward and prepare a rent stabilization, or it's called rent control ordinance, as well as a just cause eviction ordinance as identified in the body of your report, or to find out if you want to take no further action and just receive and file this report. So those are the two things that you're looking at tonight. So just to give you a little bit of background and for the benefit of the community, I'm going to go ahead and read this into the record. September 14th, 2019, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 1482, which is known as the Tenant Protection Act of 2019. Once that happened, we knew that tenants were no longer going to be protected from rent increases. So there's a period of time between him signing the bill and the implementation, or when the bill became effective January 1st, 2020, where landlords could thereby increase the rent. And to avoid these excessive increases, City Council back in October of 2019 adopted an urgency ordinance, number 900U, is a 45-day ordinance to keep this from happening. So in a sense, you at that time decided to enact a 3% maximum rent increase, among other provisions. And that would be effective for 45 days. And so you went forward and extended that after the 45 days under an amended urgency ordinance, which brought it all the way to the end of the year. So on January 2020, soon after AB 1482 became effective, the COVID pandemic hit. And at that time, the state and county approved temporary eviction and rent increase moratoriums to protect tenants from the tenants that were being impacted by this pandemic. Therefore, staff held off on pursuing any local ordinance because, again, the tenants had the protection through the COVID protections. Then in February of 2021, we had a group of nonprofits approach the mayor and city staff and our city manager with regards to moving forward with additional protections. They were proposing 32 provisions that could be part of a local rent control ordinance. In order to consider these provisions, the City Council reenacted the Rent Control Ad Hoc Committee, but this time increased it from 5 members to 7 members in order to have greater representation. These members are 2 council members, 2 tenants, 2 landlords, and also 1 representative from the nonprofit organization. We had a total of 6 committee meetings from that time all the way to March 2022, and also 2 public workshops. These public workshops were put in place with the idea of presenting the findings to the community, but also getting feedback from the community about their thoughts on rent control. We had industry professionals present to the committee as well as be on the workshop. There were 3 members of the industry at each of the public workshops giving their comments. And what the city staff did is we went after people that were looking at both the pros and cons of rent control, so we can present an unbiased view. And keep in mind, city staff has been approached by both sides, the landlords and the tenants. And of course, being that the committee is made up of both, there isn't a consensus about whether you go forward with a rent control ordinance or you don't. You know, people feel very differently about it, as you heard tonight with the various comments that you received. So the key takeaways that we had during these committee meetings, as well as the workshops, were these. A rent stabilization ordinance may minimize tenant turnover. That was one of the key things we took away. We also, though, heard that landlords have to legally receive a fair rate of return, and what that fair rate of return, you know, is up to what you decide whether to go forward with this ordinance or to stick by state law. Third, an ordinance can help prevent bad actors and landlord and tenant harassment, and again, harassment from both sides. We also saw that there's impact on development and construction. The current ordinance the current state law does not apply to new development for 15 years. It may encourage new developers to build for sale units rather than rental units, and it may also discourage capital investment. And again, this is something that we heard from the panelists that participated in these workshops and in the committee meetings. We also heard that it is a tool, not a cure-all for the housing crisis. What the city needs, like all other cities, is more development of affordable housing. Rent control is not the solution, even though it is a tool, but it's not a solution to increase housing production and affordability. And it does not apply to all units, does not mandate housing production or create affordable housing. Again, these are the key takeaways from our discussions in the workshops and among the committee. 2 other key takeaways. We have vulnerable group protections. An ordinance creates a buffer that allows seniors on fixed incomes, low-income tenants, and other vulnerable members of the community that are cost burdened to meet the financial demands of rent increase. And lastly, it could have unintended consequences, cannot forecast impact on the housing stock, on affordability and market conditions. Keep in mind that what we're trying to do with this staff report was bring everything together to present something that's simplified, something that you can look at and move forward with. However, it does not mean that what staff is proposing or what the proponents are proposing is the end all. What we're asking from you is direction. Let's move forward with an ordinance, or let's stop here and take no further action. If we move forward with the ordinance, here's some ideas of what you could do. And that's exactly what we're presenting tonight. You could come back and tell me, no, Gus, we need to look further at some of these other provisions. We need to have you go back to the ad hoc committee and run some of these ideas through. So what we're doing tonight again is presenting a simplified picture to give you some options. The primary proposed provisions, these are the 5 that our city attorney had identified that are not entirely addressed by state law, or we figure, you know what, are more significant to compiling an ordinance that's going to be effective. Number 1, to lower the cap on annual rent increases. And again, the state right now says 5% plus a maximum of 5% on CPI, so a total of 10%. Secondly, expand units covered by rent control. That's the other thing that they were looking at. The proponents of these 32 provisions are asking that you include more than what the state includes. For instance, dormitories or hotel rooms there where you're there for 30 days or more. Third, they're asking for you to create a rent control board to implement the ordinance, which again, the state does not address that. It's not a requirement through state law. Fourth, further limit the grounds for eviction when a tenant can be evicted. And fifth, they're asking you to prevent no-fault evictions for households with school-aged children and school staff during school year. Now, this is a tough one because, as you heard one of the commentators, why just this class of jobs? In other words, why not postal workers, or why not restaurant owners? You know, why just school teachers, right? So this is something that we have to do further research on, because we want to make sure that we're not getting into a legal issue with discrimination. So let's go ahead and go over the first one. Here's what the state law says on lowering cap on annual rent increases. Landlord may increase a rent twice per year, 5% plus the regional CPI, the Consumer Price Index, or inflation, and a maximum of 10% for units subject to rent control. Our nonprofits are asking us to only increase once per year, and at that point, no more than 50% of the CPI and a maximum of 3%, meaning there's a 0 base and 3% just based on CPI, so 3% maximum. And staff is looking at a compromise. And again, we're looking at trying to make sure that people from the tenant side and from the landlord side look at this fairly, that both sides feel like they're being represented and there's some compromise happening. And keep in mind, this is what happened with the state. A few years ago when the state was looking at all this, it's exactly what they were looking at. They were looking to see what can we do to make sure that we have something that would satisfy both sides of the equation. So here's what we're doing as well. So staff is identifying an increase no more than once a year and a 4% cap plus 100% of the CPI, but no more than 4%. So similar to the state, where the state says 5 and 5, we're saying 4 and 4, maximum of 8%. The second item, expand units covered by rent control. So state law says exempts units built in the last 15 years. Single family homes, condominiums rented by the owner, owner-occupied duplexes, deed-restricted affordable housing. So those are exempted. The rent control does not apply to those units. Nonprofits are asking us to cover all legally allowable units. Single-family residents, initially they were saying single-family residents, but they updated it to say 2 or more on a lot. So if you have a single family house and then you have an ADU, for instance, or even two regular single family houses on one lot, they're saying that rent control should apply. Townhouses, duplexes, apartments, in other words, regardless of whether they're condominiums or not, that they should be included in rent control if somebody is renting them out. Temporary housing. So again, we're talking about hotels that have a long stay, 30+ days, they should be subject to rent control. Mobile homes, residential units attached to commercial buildings as well. In other words, mixed use development. Now keep in mind, mobile homes have a separate law that came into effect this year. It was approved by the governor in June of last year. It's AB 978. And our city attorney can get further into that. But AB 978 concentrated on mobile homes. Because if, as you know, if you have a corporate park that owns all the mobile homes, of course, they're going to be renting them out. So they should be subject to rent control. But a lot of times you've got mobile homes that are actually owned by the person, and it's affordable housing for that person. So they're owner occupied. If that person wanted to, let's say, rent out a room, there would not be rent control for that. If that person had their own unit and they wanted to rent it out entirely to somebody else, because they're a single owner, they wouldn't be subject to rent control. What staff is recommending in this instance is to just maintain conformance with state law. Let's not get into issues with the Costa-Hawkins Act. Let's maintain that for the fairness of bringing in development into the city. Third thing, create a rent control board. Now, again, the state does not address this in state law. The nonprofits are asking us to create a 5-member board to implement the ordinance. They could be elected or appointed to represent city demographics. And by representing city demographics, you're talking about, my understanding is making sure that they're representing the majority group of the community, whether they're tenants, whether they're Spanish speakers. But this is something, again, that we could iron out and identify what exactly is meant by this representation. The Rent Control Board would also announce annual allowable increases and other responsibilities like disseminating information, education to the public, and maintaining unit registries, for all multifamily units. Staff has looked at this, and our main concern is that creating a rent control board would really add costs to the city. And I'll go over some of the fiscal impacts that we've seen in other communities in a bit. What we propose is considering a budget for housing staff to serve as a liaison between the members of the community and the various agencies out there, like we're doing right now with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, Stay Housed LA, etc. If we consider budgeting for housing staff in lieu of a rent control board, this additional housing staff, which could be one full-time person, one part-time person, and legal to help, would cost a fraction of the cost of a full rent control board. Fourth, restrict the grounds for eviction. State law says landlord needs just cause to terminate tenancy occupied for 1 year. State law provides permissible at fault and no fault causes. And again, our city attorney can go further into these details. Our nonprofits are saying to limit allowable reasons for at-fault evictions to the following. 1, failure to pay rent after 3 days written notice. 2, material breach of the rent agreement after 10 days notice. You could have a code enforcement issue, for example, that hasn't been taken care of. 3, refuse reasonable access to the landlord. So if the landlord wants to fix something, but the tenant doesn't allow them, then that's grounds for this. 4th, create substantial nuisance illegal activity. So if something is happening in the unit that is illegal, that would be grounds for eviction. And last, failure to vacate. Staff in this instance is recommending to maintain conformance with state law on this. Last is the one that's been brought up about school staff and during the school year for children. So to prevent no fault evictions during the school year, but it's questionable what is the school year. Some schools have year-round school. So what are you going to do there? And school staff, again, the question has been brought up, why are faculty protected versus other employment, other positions? State law does not address this. The nonprofit is recommending this during the school year. But again, what is that school year? Year round, or is it the ones that go 9 months out of the year and 3 months vacation? Staff recommends further research into this. Our city attorney, who's dealing with this issue, at this point does not feel like we can really give you direction on this item without doing further research. So looking at the fiscal impacts, we had looked at 3 communities. We try to find other communities similar to Bell Gardens, but we do not see any out there that have the size and demographics of and also budget of Bell Gardens. So we looked at annual operating budget for the city of Santa Monica, West Hollywood, and San Francisco. And this is some data that we collected recently. This is within the last month or so. Santa Monica has a rent control budget of 5.5 million, West Hollywood 2.4 million, and San Francisco 13.35 million. Again, these are very different communities, much larger cities, and that's one of the reasons for these larger budgets. What staff is saying is, in lieu of a rent control board, we can do something that the cities of Downey and Pasadena do. They allocate funds towards rental assistance. In this case, they allocate 1 million to 2 million annually. If the city decides to go in that direction, that money would not only cover its staff, but would cover additional educational workshops. It would cover legal costs, putting people together with attorneys to make sure they get the assistance they need. For a city of the size of Bell Gardens, we anticipate 150 to 250 annually for a housing division staff member to propose the public. I'm sorry, to assist the public. So lastly, again, what we're looking for a recommendation is 2 alternatives: to prepare a rent stabilization and just cause eviction ordinance as we identify here, or you could say prepare an ordinance but look further into other proposals that the nonprofits are putting together and giving us, or lastly, take no further action and receive and file this report. So if there are any questions, I'm here to answer them. Also, we have Norma Tabares, who's our legal counsel on this topic. She's on the website as well. I'm sorry, on the call. Thank you.
Any questions?
I can
No
get
question?
started, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
Just want to thank staff for putting this together. This is coming from staff. I believe it's an improvement over the state rent control. Starting off with just the fact that they're proposing a maximum of 8%. My goal today with this item and as member of the rent control ad hoc is not really to impose anything on the council or the community, but more than anything, just share my perspective from what I've learned as a member of the ad hoc. So what I can go ahead and start with is, it's really hard for people to visualize what the current state rent control means, right, in terms of money. So I came up with a very simple example. Let's say that you are paying $2,000 rent. And due to the max cap of rent increase that's allowed by the state, that would mean that you can increase it by 10%. That means that you're gonna go from $2,000 to paying $2,200. That's the legally allowed limit. Now, if you keep doing that, let's say for 4 years, you have to keep in mind that the following year, you're gonna be taking 10%, not of the 2,000, but you're gonna be taking 10% of the 2,200. So when you do that over the course of 4 years, you end up going from paying $2,000 to paying $2,928 over the course of 4 years, which is about 50% increase in total from what you used to pay, which was $2,000. So you go from paying $2,000 to roughly paying $3,000 over the course of 4 years. So that's the system that we are currently under here in California, in general, unless the city that we're referring to has their own rent control ordinance. So definitely 8%, as staff is suggesting, is an improvement. Now the question is it enough, right? Well, I think everyone has very valid opinions, and I think that we need to have a serious discussion about what we want to do with this rent control issue. I personally think that we can do a little bit better, not only with that, but with protections for tenants. Another thing that I want to thank staff for doing is acknowledging the fact that we need to do a little bit more research. Number 5 of the proposed items, which was preventing no-fault evictions during school year for children and school staff. We definitely want to do everything we can to protect children. I think we can all agree on that. However, we need to make sure that we have all the facts. Another very interesting thing I found here on today's report is that landlords must legally receive a fair rate of return. You know, one of the arguments that I've heard over and over is, you know, landlords are gonna be losing a lot of money. You know, they gotta make repairs, and I completely understand that's a reality. However, my question to Gus, and this is a question that I brought up to the rent board, and we can continue to look into it just for our own education, is what would the process of making sure that our landlords are receiving a fair return look like? And is that related to the rent board? Because given that there is a recommendation here to not have a rent board, I am just concerned that if we do lower it to 8% or lower, if landlords come back and say, hey, I'm not getting a fair rate of return, do we have the infrastructure necessary to make sure that we can process an appeal or whatnot? And I'll open that question up to Gus. Maybe he can provide some knowledge to the council.
Well, Councilmember Barcena, one of the arguments has been, as you pointed out, what exactly is that fair rate of return? How is it calculated? Well, a landlord always has the ability to bring up repairs that are necessary to be able to provide a safe environment for its tenant. And ultimately, they could bring that up to a rent control board and say, here is the reason for this rent increase. There's certain things happening with the unit that need repairs, and I can't do that unless I raise my rent. The other thing is looking at the consumer price index of inflation rate. If we cap it at a certain amount and the inflation is twice what's allowed, then what's happening is that landlord is the one that's paying the additional amount above and beyond the fair rate of return. I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over also to our city attorney, Norma Tabarez, to see if she can expand on that. Norma, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, everyone. Yeah, what I would add to that is, you know, when we talk about landlords being having a right for a fair rate of return, it really speaks to the fact that rent control has been tested in the courts and has been found to be legal, so long as it's not so excessive that it prevents landlords from their right to a return, meaning it would be an unconstitutional taking of their property, right? So that we don't want an ordinance that's so restrictive that it would trigger that constitutional challenge. So that's what we are referring to when we talk about having a right to a fair return. With regard to the practicalities, what some ordinances, the way they're structured is they have, as Gus was alluding to, certain safety valves, right, for landlords so that they can have, they can appeal in essence or go beyond what the standard cap is because of specific circumstances that can be laid out in an ordinance, such as capital improvements, et cetera. And so that's the way it would be addressed as a practical matter. But yes, it would require administration at the city level and staffing at the city level in order to create some sort of appeal process for landlords in that situation.
Thank you for clarifying that. So Gus, just a question, with the staff recommendation of 8%, are we prepared to handle any appeals that may come our way, and what would the mechanics of that look like in the city here of Bell Gardens?
You know, I would ask Norma to take us through the process of not having a rent control board. If a landlord wanted to appeal something, would that go to the courts, Norma, or who would that go to?
If a landlord wanted to appeal, we would want to have an administrative process set up at the city level, where, you know, whether it's going to, it would have to be some sort of administrative process that we create as part of our ordinance.
Okay, so that could be through housing division staff, for instance, as opposed to a rent control board. Or it could be through a rent control board as well.
That's right. It's really up to us.
Okay, so thank you, Norma. Part of enacting an ordinance would be putting in the language for this process. And we would have to specify within that ordinance what would be the appeal process, who would be the person making the decision, or how it would be applied. I hope that answers your question, Councilmember Persona.
Thank you. That's all I have for now. I'd like to just open it up to maybe my colleague who's also on the ad hoc, or any other council member that may have any comments or questions.
I have a question. What percentage of our property owners are small mom and pop owners?
Based on some research that we recently did, and this was more on a regional level, it was being identified that within this region, about 70% of property owners are actually small owners, meaning that they have 4 or less units. And about 30% are the larger corporations with multiple units. But when you look at under 5 units, they are owned by, you know, people that ultimately are not investors in the grand scheme of things, but they own a few units. And again, that's taken from a regional perspective as opposed to just Bell Gardens.
Have we, would we be able to get that data to be specific to Bell Gardens and know what the ratios look like?
I think we can gather that data, yes.
Okay. Any more questions or comments?
I have a couple of comments, questions, the above. This is a very lengthy process, and obviously a lot of people are interested in the results of what may be here tonight. So first off, I'd like to thank everybody that called. The city manager gave a tally around about the 138 emails that we received. Can you hear me? Yeah. That we received, whether it was in opposition or support of rent control. Out of 138 families, 138 emails, about 130 were all in support, with only 8 being in opposition. So there's a clear and concise message here that there's an overwhelmingly amount of support for rent control, and I hear everybody loud and clear. And I've always, you know, said my position. I'm not going to say it at the moment, but I just have, you know, I want to say that for some of the landlords that called and for those that did not call but are listening in, we're not asking that you don't keep your units at market rate. We continue keeping them at market rate, or we don't want you to act as a government for low income families trying to subsidize or, give anything for free. We're not asking you to act as the government. We simply just, what the residents want is that they have livable conditions. I've seen some stories and I've actually visited some of the apartments and there are in atrocious conditions. Gus Romo, our community development director, is someone who I often turn my residents to when I hear that landlords are harassing them, sending lawyers, illegal evictions. We're talking about rats and roaches infestations simultaneously with termites falling off ceilings and all kinds of pests, in one home where there's children trying to grow and develop. There's situations in which there's a family that's a hop and skip away from being homeless, right? We're not talking about all of the landlords that have worked their entire lives to have these properties and to provide livable housing and that they're good to their tenants and they maintain. We're not talking about you guys. I think that you guys are like the exception to the rule, right? And we want to make sure that I want to make sure that as a representative, I'm representing you and thanking you and rewarding your efforts. But at the same time, I have a responsibility to protect the children and the families and the men and women and to all of the residents in my community. I have a 16-year-old in this email saying that she's afraid of her landlord. A 16-year-old should not be writing to their council members that they're afraid of their landlord. Do you know what kind of trauma that is that's giving? That's ridiculous. So I'm going to make sure that we somehow post these somewhere so you guys have access to this because these stories, they will make any mother cry. It's not right. We shouldn't have residents sending all these emails saying that there's rats in their house, there's roaches in their house, the landlord is making them cry, they can't sleep, they have nightmares that people come knocking on the door asking them to leave the only home they have. It's not right. So I want to say that I want to thank all of the residents for being patient with us. And I know that this is going to take some more time. This is only the beginning. And I know that there's been a loud message that was sent out to landlords today that the council is looking at implementing rent control. And I'm also concerned of what their future is going to look like now that they've been made aware and how they're going to be reprimanded for even participating here today or putting a sign on their window that says that they demand just housing. I'm scared for what's going to happen to them. If you feel that you are being harassed after today, I ask you to please reach out to us. We have Gus is an excellent source who's been working with LAPSA, right? Gus, LAPSA and other different attorneys and just all kinds of legal accessibility resources that we have for you to access. I haven't been on the ad hoc committee for rent, but I will say this, if I may. I'm here to protect the families of Bell Gardens. The region is what Gus says that about 70% of the region is owned by mom and pop, but I'm not talking about 70% of the region. I'm talking about just Bell Gardens, where about 80% plus of the residents rent. 80% of the families in my city rent. And they're letting me know that they need help. So today I'm here to help them and to support what is being presented to us. I do have some questions because there's some clarification that absolutely needs to be implemented and we need to go into the details of it. One of them being the school year and the faculty staff there's something in there that could be for sure argued. I'm not quite sure about the board as well. But the rest of the things sound they sound reasonable. We do have to look at what the CPI is. I was having a conversation with a financial expert earlier today. And in a regular year, the CPI only goes up by 2% to 2.5 at the most. So everybody will still make their money and people will feel protected. So there's no need for everybody to get alarmed. I mean, right now everything went higher because of the pandemic.
Councilmember, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to let you know that the CPI is currently at 6 or 7%, just as a note. Thank
If
you.
you would have let me finish my sentence, you would have heard that unless there's another pandemic, the CPI will look like it looks like right now, which is over 6%. But in regular times, when there wasn't a pandemic, it was about 2% and on. But thank you for paying attention to me. So we have to make sure that we are aware of the statistics, right? So it's usually about 2% to 2.5. So if we were to even just implement what this nonprofits are requesting, everybody will still make money. So, I mean, I'm gonna leave that there. I know that there's more members on this council and I'm gonna let them speak their piece, but that's all I have to say for now, and then we'll wait for the votes to roll in. Thank you.
Mayor Pulido. Yes. I just want to thank Councilmember Barson and the rest of the ad hoc committee that has attended continuous meetings, 2 different workshops to listen to the different sides and positions on this issue. It is not an easy one. However, I think, if we work together, we can come to a compromise in which we can help our tenants that have called out and reached out for our help, but also not be completely unfair to those small mom and pop owners, and we can definitely offer some protections for them while at the same time helping our tenants. So the ad hoc really wanted to bring this back to council to receive direction whether to move forward or not with even discussing the terms of an ordinance, so that at that point we can return to the ad hoc and have an honest conversation as to where we're willing to give a little or where we're willing to take a little, because as of right now, the ad hoc is uncertain whether the council would want to move forward with an ordinance or not. And given that there's just so many propositions and so much information that we do need to continue to look into, but I do want to thank everybody for calling in and sending your comments. We did receive all of your printed comments. We have them with us. So know that we do have access to read them, and we are reading them, and we are hearing from both sides and both positions. And that's why we had both workshops. But I think today we can help the community of Bell Gardens, but we can also be very fair. So that's all with my comments. Thank you.
If I may, I still have some comments in regards to this item. Another thing that I wanted to thank staff for pointing out here, and I think it's a great start, is budgeting for housing staff to serve as a liaison between residents and housing resources in lieu of establishing a rent board. So whether we end up with a rent board or not, I think one of the takeaways, and I'm sure Councilmember Cortez is also in the ad hoc would agree, that a large portion of residents that came to our workshops, they had legitimate complaints that even under current law are basically illegal. In other words, like Councilmember Flores mentioned, they're being exposed to harsh living conditions, which involve mold, rats, roach infestations, and practically, basically a very low quality of life while they're still paying rent and all that. So that is currently right now illegal. So what are we doing as a city to make sure that we're providing those resources? Do we have enough staff? I think if we look at the staff recommendation, it's very clear that we can do a better job at having a resource here in the city, taking care of those issues that are very prominent in our community. Like if you would have gone to one of our workshops, you would have known right away from the testimony that this is happening today. These living conditions are being experienced today by our residents. So I take that very seriously, and I'm happy to see that staff is suggesting that we take that action, and that's something that I would agree with. But again, I do feel like we can do a better job overall as far as the protections and also the caps that we're setting for this rent control.
Any final comments?
If I may,
Yes.
thank you for that. First off, I'd like to begin with the question to our Community Development Director, Gus Romo. I know he mentioned mom and pop landlords percentage, 70%. I'm curious to know if the source or the data that's coming, where is it coming from? And then is it regional perspective, regionally as in Sela, Southeast LA, or is it gateway cities, which includes a lot more than just Southeast LA cities?
It is more on a, not just SELA, but a regional area, Southern California. And I could gather that information for you. It's based on myself and our associate planner, Mona, the last month or so, looking at various articles and trying to uncover this information. Unfortunately, we were trying to get to the bottom of Bell Gardens, but we could not extract that information, not just yet, but we were able to get information on a more regional level.
Okay, yeah, because I'd be interested in seeing the source, the data that's coming from. First off, I'm happy that this item is being brought to our council. Rent control has been worked on for years, even prior to my election to the council. I would like to thank Councilmember Cortez Barcena for working on this item. I'd also like to thank the nonprofits, orgs, for participating, the Union, the Vecinas, the Bell Gardens, and East Yards Communities for Environmental Justice, who have been working tirelessly on rent control, educating our residents, and literally canvassing door to door on this item. Overall, I appreciate everyone who participated in bringing this item forward and the comments that were submitted today. Now, with that said, I went ahead and I attended both workshops hosted by our city, and majority of the comments that were brought forward were by tenants. Just this last week, a flyer mailer was sent out to our residents that was illegal as it used our city logo. With that said, I was under the impression that was being proposed to us were findings by the ad hoc committee. I'm curious if the ad hoc committee got to vote on these recommendations prior to even these items being brought back to our council. It seems as they have not. This is just a recommendation just to go back to the ad hoc committee and then vote on them again. Therefore, in my opinion, back to what staff has recommended, I believe that it's not enough to address our residents' concerns. I believe that allowing the increase of 8% per year is too high. I also believe that our council should look into establishing a rent control board. Although staff mentioned that the cost to establish a rent control board is excessive, I disagree, as I believe a rent board is vital to service our community just. I would also like to ask our city request LAFLA, the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, to assist in drafting of this ordinance. I believe LAFLA is more than equipped in assisting our city in drafting of our ordinance, as they have assisted various other cities. My motion is as follows. Our city explore rent control with no cap at the base, and instead only take into account the CPI with the 100% CPI capped at 5% max. Establish a rent control board, have LAFLA Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles assist in drafting the ordinance, and ultimately have the ad hoc committee vote on these recommendations prior to it being brought back to our council. In addition, I would ask that we establish an emergency rent freeze tonight until we establish a rent control ordinance in our city. That's my motion.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion for us to move forward with an ordinance, but for the terms and conditions to be left up to the ad hoc to be discussed and determined.
We have two motions on the floor. We'll address Mayor Pro Tem's motion first. Do we have a second?
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
City Clerk, will you please conduct roll call vote?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez.
Yeah.
Flores.
I'll go ahead and can we split your motion into two? So I believe that the rent freeze might be probably necessary while we figure out what we're gonna do with our rent control, just so that nobody experiences any sort of extortion while we decide what's actually going to happen. So if you're willing to split your motion, I can go ahead and second your motion to freeze rent until we decide something. So Mayor, how would we go to clarify that second motion?
Yeah, unfortunately, that last part of your motion to put a freeze on it, we would have to do that by taking action through an ordinance, and that's not on the table here tonight. So we would be unable to do that at this time.
Is there anything we could do to put this item as an or discuss this today or put some sort of freeze? Is there anything we could do to put an emergency rent freeze tonight?
No, there's nothing we can do tonight. What we could do is at a future agenda, bring forward an urgency ordinance. And if we did that, it wouldn't require 2 readings. It would take effect upon the first reading and approval by the city council. But there's nothing on the agenda tonight that would allow us to do what you're requesting.
Okay. Is it possible to have staff bring back this item as an urgency ordinance?
Certainly, we could bring it back
Yes,
as an urgency.
we could do
ordinance.
that. I would, with the caveat that I would need to make sure that we could make the necessary findings to make it an urgency ordinance. So I can look into that, and if the council would like, I can bring that back at the next regular meeting.
Can we clear? Okay, go ahead.
So at this time, we can't vote on Mayor Pro Tem's motion, right? Because of the
last
element?
part, the last part of his motion. Do you want to read your motion again, Councilmember?
So the motion I made, my motion is as follows. Have our city explore rent control with no cap at the base and instead only take into account CPI with the 100% CPI capped at 5% max. Establish a rent control board. Have LAFLA, Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, assist our city in drafting of the ordinance, and ultimately have the ad hoc committee vote on these recommendations prior to it being brought back to our council.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that again.
Roll call, please.
Council members Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
No.
Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Polito.
No.
If I may, Mayor?
Yes.
Gus, do you have your direction? Do you need any other direction from the city council? I just want to make sure we're all clear so that we bring back something at the next meeting.
I've got my notes and I'll get them from the city clerk tomorrow also, so I'm clear.
Okay. And Norma, do you have any questions before we move on to the next item?
Can you hear me? You can hear me, right? Yeah, I do have a question. So moving forward with this motion that was passed, what will be the role of the ad hoc, the rent ad hoc committee? Because my understanding is that there was a direction to explore certain aspects of the rent control. Is that going to involve the ad hoc committee?
It was his motion.
I understood that this would come back to the ad hoc, but with the specificity that's there, it sounds like it's for the ad hoc to vote yes or no on the specificity as provided by the Mayor Pro Tem. I suppose looking that through, the ad hoc might vote no on potentially on those specific items. So I guess maybe we would, from a staff perspective, would want some clarification on that. So there was specific items for the ad hoc to vote on. If in the event the ad hoc voted no on those items and that's not what came back from council, is that's anticipated by the Mayor Pro Tem?
So for example, in the motion that I made, what was agreed on was that the ad hoc would explore 100% CPI capped at 5% max. In regards to establishing a rent control board, it didn't specify as to whether or not there would be an election for the rent control board or as to whether or not it would be appointed. That's up to the ad hoc to decide.
We still have to explore the details of it, right? Because we're gonna have different readings and amendments and changes. It's just for us to move forward, right?
Correct. So I think for the sake of clarity, I think what you're saying, Mayor Pro Tem, is that you want these items to be brought to the ad hoc committee and have those issues flushed out there. And then once they flush out those issues, we can craft something, an ordinance that will come back to the full city council for discussion and possible approval. Is that kind of what you envision?
What I envisioned was what the motion I had stated, that the CPI would be only taken into account, there wouldn't be a rent control.
I understand the specific
and then
things that you're
have the ad
asking
hoc vote
for
on that.
but I think I think as part of that, it's going to have to go back to the ad hoc
And let them vote and
for
decide.
discussion and all. Yes.
Yes, and then finally, for example, in the specificity about the rent control board, they will decide whether or not it'll be elected or appointed, just the same way they would have. They didn't give in the motion. I didn't give the option to have LAFLA participate or not. I asked for LAFLA to assist in drafting the ordinance.
I'm sorry, I'm so confused with that motion. So the purpose of who's not on mute? So, no, somebody's still on. Jane. Okay, so for the CPI, you're saying there's no base, there's just whatever the CPI is 100% capped at 5%. And you're asking the ad hoc to either vote yes or no. In the given case, let's say the ad hoc says no, then what does the ad hoc do at that point?
Bring back the recommendation that they're going to go with. So for example, if they say no, there's got to be an alternative.
Well, then I think that makes this motion pointless because it's still going to the ad hoc to discuss what their preference is. And that was my whole argument in the beginning. When we sat down with the ad hoc, Councilmember Barcena, we mentioned to all of them that we would bring it back to council just to receive direction, whether we were moving forward with an ordinance or not. At that point, the ad hoc would go back and determine what they thought was best, right? With the different components that we do have in the ad hoc and have an honest conversation as to what limits we were willing to do for the rent increase, for the rent control board, for all these 5 different items. I think at this point, if we are adding all these different limitations, then there's no point to an ad hoc. Then we should just decide it here amongst us today. And that's the reason why I voted no, because that was the presumption when we voted in the ad hoc to bring it just back for, hey, are we moving forward with an ordinance or not? If at this point we decided, you know what, yes, we do have a very strong interest towards an ordinance, now we go back and we have an honest conversation with the 2 landlord representatives, the 2 tenants, the nonprofit, and ourselves in terms of, based on everything that we've seen in the ad hoc, what we think would be pragmatic for our city. Not only that, but there's also further research to bring back on one of those provisions. I just think this motion is very mute. I just don't see a point to it. Because like in the alternative that we vote no, then what happens? Then we just discuss, so then what was even the point of this?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
So one of the things about the motion is that we kind of needed to zero in on what numbers we're looking at, and I believe that the motion clarifies that. We're now looking at a 5%. And I do feel like the ad hoc still plays an important role. You know, what the ad hoc has to say is important, even if direction has been given by the council, because we need to figure out, you know, what the cost is going to be, right? And when we have the community development director helping us out with those numbers and staff preparing the actual ordinance, I believe that the ad hoc can do a great job, just like how we've been doing a great job of informing the residents to make sure that those numbers make sense. So even though the ad hoc is not the final say, as we are here in the council, I appreciate the fact that the ad hoc is going to continue to be involved in guiding the formation of this ordinance. So I understand the motion. Thank you for explaining all that. Thank you for answering those questions, Rick. And that is my comment. Thank you.
I just want to clarify in terms of the motion that was on the table. What I understood is that we're taking this back. We're getting direction to move forward with exploring an ordinance, take it back to ad hoc to discuss all of the provisions, specifically the 2 that were mentioned, not exclusively the 2, but specifically those 2. So that's the way I understood it. So A, yes, we have direction to explore an ordinance. B, go back and get input from ad hoc and have them vote yay or nay for the different components. And C, be sure to include or address these 2 specific things, the 5% max cap, 100% CPI, and the issue of rent control. That's the way I understood it. So I don't think that it limits us to looking at just those two items. And instead, it just calls those out specifically.
Gus, how much would it cost our city, our size to have the board? Because I know the presentation included numbers for larger cities and then a budget for, resources, but not necessarily for the board itself. What are we looking at? Because I think we're voting on something that we haven't explored in regards to our financial impact. And that's a different conversation. I think we kind of jumped into it without having all the information. How much would that cost?
Based on a rough estimate that we were looking at with a city our size and identifying how much community questions we were going to be getting, in other words, how many cases we would be getting per year, we estimated that it could be anywhere from about $750,000 to $1 million a year for a rent control board. And again, that's on the lower end. But we'd have to investigate further and put a scenario together that says, if we get so many cases per year and we follow up on those cases, the staff to put together the meetings and bring the rent control board together and take action. And then, of course, looking at legal costs too, because we'd have to have an attorney presiding over this. So that's what we came up with.
Thank you. Okay. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 14?
I have a clarification question.
Oh, sure.
City Attorney, can you please clarify for the record for those listening and for any other members who are interested in knowing exactly what's going to happen with an item moving forward? Because I wanted to specify that really nothing as far as rent control was approved today, but more so the conversations are going forward to actually implement, but nothing has been set today, like set in stone. Can you please clarify what's happening now?
Correct, Councilmember Flores. Today is really just the opportunity for the City Council to give staff direction on what sort of ordinance that they would like to see come back before them relating to rent stabilization or rent control. So tonight, we were given direction. There was a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Chavez indicating the direction that he would like us to move forward with. There was a vote on that direction. The direction was received. So now staff is going to go back, meet with the ad hoc committee, and hopefully at a future meeting, come back with an ordinance, which the City Council would have to consider. The community would have the opportunity before the ordinance was voted upon to provide additional public comment. And there would be two readings. So there would be one opportunity when you do the first reading for the public to provide public comment. And then there would have to be a second reading. The public at that point would also have the opportunity to provide additional public comment. And if the ordinance after the second reading was approved by the City Council, the rent stabilization or the rent control ordinance would take effect 30 days afterwards. So really there is no final action being taken here tonight. It was just an opportunity for the public to provide input and comment on rent control, and also for us as staff to get direction from the City Council.
Thank you. So again, guys, and our city attorney is really smart, so he uses really big words. But what that means is nobody be upset and nobody celebrate just yet. This is just us moving forward. It's still going to go back to Alejandra and Marco's ad hoc committee that they have with all of the other groups, and more conversations are going to happen. This is just us deciding that we are interested and we want to see what's out there. So please, I already got a text message and I'm like, nope, nothing has been set in stone, guys. Just hang on a second, wait for us. We still need, I'm not an expert on the rent for sure, but I do know that I'm here to do what's right. And I'm going to listen to whatever Gus has to say, whatever, other interests and stakeholders have to say. So nothing is set in stone, guys. This is just a conversation that's going to move forward. That's it. and we're still going to hear you guys out. So there's still more opportunities and more council meetings for you to attend and voice your opinions.
Councilmember, that was much more clear than my explanation.
Simpler terms, you know?
City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 14?
Thank you, Mayor Polito. This item is regarding City Council Chamber in-person public participation. At the last council meeting and prior to that, the council provided or gave direction to staff to look at some options available to potentially reopening the chambers to in-person public participation. So I want to talk about what have we been doing and what are we doing currently. The order of the public health officer allows meetings such as a city council meeting to be open to the public with really only one restriction, and that restriction is that masks be strongly encouraged. So it's not really much of a restriction. It's really a requirement that we strongly encourage. It doesn't even require enforcement or compliance. But it also does allow specifically local governments to have additional and or more stringent requirements than that. More restrictive infection control requirements is the specific term that is used. And so what staff has done is looked at what are other cities doing, what makes sense based on the current COVID load that exists. And really, there are a couple of options that we see from a staff perspective. You know, we've had City Hall open for passports, for people to come in and make payments, to get permits. We've done them to varying degrees of varying degrees of COVID control as the rates have come up, as the rates have come down. And so we've described here, we try to break it down to 4 basic options. The first one being the most restrictive and with the most what we'll call infection control. And then the 4th option being the least restrictive, which, you know, and you could argue the calculations, but it would be the least restrictive in infection control. So the first option there would be to just keep the council chamber closed as it is currently. Residents or stakeholders can participate through Zoom meetings, either teleconference, we can see them on video, they can submit emails or via phone. They can also watch the meetings that are live streamed on various platforms. That's what we're currently doing. What we described as option 2 is something a little bit of a change from that, and that is where we look at the County of Los Angeles. So looking at a couple jurisdictions around, there are 2 nearby cities that continue to remain closed completely. There's other cities that are completely open. And we looked at the LA County Board of Supervisors. Why would we look at them? Obviously, we're in LA County. Also, the Department of Public Health reports to the county supervisors. And so they would probably have the best, most direct information available regarding COVID. So option 2 was one that ties our meetings, the in-person public participation, to the same that's being done by the LA County Board of Supervisors. So currently they're moving towards opening more of their meetings, but they currently still don't allow in-person public participation similar to the city. And what we described in that option is that if the council were to select that, we would state that the city would automatically apply the in-person public participation rules to city council meetings. So if the council were to meet today on April 11th and the council gave direction that we would follow the guidance that the County Board of Supervisors uses, and let's say before our next meeting on the 25th, LA County Supervisors meetings are open to the public completely with no restrictions, we would automatically follow that guidance. If they were to open at a 50% capacity with a mask requirement or some other requirements, we would automatically follow their lead. What we present as the 3rd option is one that we kind of took it upon ourselves to not wait for the county. And what we looked at was limiting the amount of participation within these council chambers. So these chambers hold approximately 100 participants at full capacity. So what we did was try to space that out a bit, and we've filled every other pew, and instead of accounting for normal 18 inches of seating space, we've added a foot, 6 inches on each side, so that we're accounting for 30 inches of space. So you would have approximately 4 to 5 feet of space in front of you and behind you, and you'd have approximately a foot of space to your left and to your right. Potentially with masks being highly encouraged, you can do something more stringent than that as well. Just based on the calculations of the pews, that would result in about 31 participants being allowed to attend the meeting. So we would call that a limited in-person public participation. The fourth option is one that you will see in some cities regionally, and that's a full reopening. So back to pre-COVID levels. The only requirement is just that the health order does require that we strongly encourage masks. I think from the perspective, those are four broad options. I think from a staff perspective, obviously, we believe that we can put in measures in place, but we would admit that option 1 and 2 are the most restrictive, provide the most level of infection control, and option 3 and 4 start to degrade that a little bit. To the extent as far as efficacy in controlling COVID, I'm not making a statement to that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, talk about some of the specifics of the options. And of course, the council could table the item and come back every meeting and direct staff to come back at every meeting to readdress the issue. So happy to answer any questions and provide any other information that may be deemed necessary. Thank you.
Does any member of the city council have any questions or comments?
I thank you so much, City Manager. I feel like I am leaning towards following county, but I'm also willing to hear my colleagues out and support whatever we all feel would be the best at the moment.
I would like to agree with the option that Mike presented as well with following county.
Do we have a motion? Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and tune in. I'm glad to see this item is brought back to the council. I remember I brought this item back in the March meeting, second or second March meeting. And I'm glad to see that it's here again. Briefly, I looked over the recommendations and I'm glad that the city manager also went through them. I did have a quick question. I know we talked about LA County supervisors and the direction they've taken. By any chance, do we have any information in regards to other cities nearby that have already gone?
Sure. So just as a couple examples, north of us in Commerce is still fully closed. So that would be our option 1, or currently option 2 that could change. Cudahy is another option 1, or also right now option 2. Pico Rivera is an option 4, which is completely open. Downey is completely open. Southgate is open. I believe there may be some limitations on volume. So there's kind of a mix with the cities right around us. I believe Bell is moving to fully open as well.
Oh, okay, sounds good. So this is something that's not uncommon that other neighboring cities have already taken it upon themselves to open it or not. As my colleagues may suspect, I'm leaning to more participation by having them be present, our constituents, residents, stakeholders, or anybody who wants to tune into our council meetings, whether that be online or here in person. If we were to choose to open in-person public participation, we could also still do live streaming online, just the same we've been doing it throughout the pandemic, correct?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. So all of these options assume that we would still continue to have meetings live stream on multiple platforms we would be doing regardless of COVID. But the participation of the public through Zoom and by council members through Zoom, it would be anticipated that as long as COVID is still out there, and as long as there are provisions allowed for that to occur, that we would continue that as well. So the other thing that would change would just be whether there are people in person here or not.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm comfortable allowing the people to attend our council chambers. I'd be comfortable opening it to the public in general, to be fully open, as some cities have gone. However, I do understand some of my colleagues are a bit hesitant. Therefore, I'm willing to compromise, and I believe option 3 would allow that, where it'll be up to staff in terms of allowing a certain number of participants here at the council chambers, while at the same time still having safety provisions in place. So option 3 would be my motion.
I have a question, Madam Mayor, if I may. City Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was brought back due to a motion that I made at the last council meeting in regards to this item. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, Councilmember Barcena.
I remember, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe my motion included some type of outreach so that we can engage the public in the current format of our meetings. Can you tell me if any of that was carried out?
So specifically, I think, and I'll have the product wrong, in working with the community development director and also our senior management analyst, we're looking at a Google product that would help. Is that the item that you're sort of the software that you'd be speaking about that would help with this outreach?
No, I believe you're confusing that with rent control ad hoc. I do have a question in regards to that too, but given that we're on this item now, I just wanted to know if anything was done in regards to that motion in providing outreach to the community so that they can be engaged in our current council meetings and the format that is via Zoom virtually. That was part of my motion at the last meeting.
Yes, Councilmember Barcena. I'll let, if I can talk with our senior management analyst. I think what we've tried to do is the way that we're putting out the social media, try to make it less, I'm going to say it authoritarian, sort of here's the date, here's the time, here's how you proceed, but putting the information out in a more inviting or friendly fashion, kind of the softer look of it, and also the description of, kind of more inviting, like it's a little bit more of an informal setting, even though we know it's a formal meeting. So Hylas, if you could maybe talk a little bit about that, the efforts that we put in on that.
Sure. Yes, Councilmember Barcena, actually was working with the city clerk's office. They did develop a flyer that just simply asks, you want to get involved with the community, provide input. So they drafted a flyer that was attached to today's public notice, informing the public to participate via Zoom and submitting written comments. We did probably today's meeting, we did see a lot of public participation. I don't know whether the flyer helped, or I know there was already a lot of interest in the meeting due to specifically the rent control item. But yes, it was shared on all of our social media platforms, and that flyer is probably going to keep evolving. I think part of the algorithm that I've noticed from social media is that a lot of the posts aren't getting pushed through if we're resharing the same graphic. The graphics do get modified a little bit, but it would have to, you notice that there's more public engagement if we actually use pictures or videos as opposed to just the infographic. So maybe a combination of those items, different types of media, even maybe potential videos. It seems like we get more views just from the stories, the Instagram stories and Facebook stories, as opposed to just public posts. It seems like more people are interested in viewing our stories. So we do add links to it whenever possible.
So Councilmember Barcena, I apologize. Yeah, I was confusing with the Google item, and I'm glad Hylas added a little bit of color to it, because we spoke about it several weeks ago. So I don't know that obviously, as Hylas mentioned, I don't know that our efforts are why we had, probably not why we had 130 emails, but I'm hoping maybe we could take credit for 7 or 8 extra participants. But we can keep evolving kind of in the way that Hylas is talking by looking. I'm not looking at the algorithms, but I understand what he's saying as far as ways to figure out electronically how to get people to notice what it is that we're doing here.
All right, thank you for providing that information. I just want to make sure that if we are not able to open the doors, that we are continuing to think creatively about how to involve and engage the general public in our council meetings. As you guys know, I'm a big advocate of public comment and being involved. So I would like to continue trying our best to engage people. I do feel like we might be ready to bring in a few people in City Hall, considering that most of the cities in the surrounding areas, as the city manager mentioned, have already decided to allow people to come in. I know that based on the option number 3, we will be limiting the council chambers to about 31 participants. Is that correct?
Yes,
And
council member.
looking at the benches from here and, you know, looking at all the staff and everyone not wearing a mask, I believe that if we will wear a mask and provide the distancing that's appropriate, that could maintain us, you know, a considerable safety net for any potential risk that may be associated. Yeah, that's my opinion there. Thank you.
Just because of the last comment, I want to just flip my camera and show that the chamber's empty. That's why no one's wearing a mask, because it's empty and we're all distant. There's also plexiglass right here in between us, and we're all vaccinated. Turn that up there.
So just for clarification, I did make a motion. I don't know if nobody's gonna second.
Oh yeah, I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Okay.
It's motion, you said number 3?
Yes, option number 3.
Yes, I'll second that motion.
City Clerk, can you please call roll call?
Hold on, Lisa, was yours a motion or was that not a motion? It wasn't, okay.
Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Can you repeat the motion again?
Yes, I'll go ahead and repeat it. So option number 3, limited in-person participation for council chamber meetings. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. I'm muted. Okay, option number 3, limited in-person public participation for city council chamber meetings. The city council chamber can accommodate approximately 31 participants by excluding the first and every other row of pews and allowing 30 inches of seating. 18 inches is a typical seating measurement, but 30 inches allows 6-inch buffer on each side per seated participant. Masks will be highly encouraged.
Thank you.
All right, on that also, I wanted to just clarify that I did not make a motion, but I will be making a motion now to follow the county. Okay.
I'll abstain.
So we're running the vote for Marco or Jorge or for me?
okay.
So
I'm
the
sorry.
original motion was option number 3.
It's your motion or Marco's motion?
He seconded my motion,
Okay.
and then you just made another motion.
Okay.
So
we're going to continue with the original motion. 'Cause We're
Okay.
in the middle of roll call.
okay.
Gotcha.
Okay. Councilmember Cortez,
She abstained.
Abstain.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
I think you.
I think they skipped.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Flores.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Yes.
And Mayor Polito.
No. So now we're,
I'll go ahead and second Council Member Flores' motion.
roll call, please.
Councilmember Chavez.
That was for me, correct, Barcena? Yes, I will vote yes on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cortez.
Yes.
Flores.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
I'll abstain.
Pardon?
He's going to abstain.
Okay, abstain. And Mayor Polito.
Yes. Thank you. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 15?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Polito. This item is a request for the council to approve an employment agreement of a retiree specifically Carmen Morales, her name is listed here in the recommendation, to fill the role as the interim city planner while we finalize the recruitment for the position and to allow for a little extra time of overlap. This agreement would not exceed 3 months. So that would be the cap. If we complete the recruitment and we have a new city planner on board in 5 weeks, we may only need 3 to 4 weeks, depending on extra duties and how quickly things come along. It may not be 3 months, but it would not exceed 3 months. You'll see a lot of government code sections. So this is done in accordance with all the rules and requirements set in place by CalPERS. So with that, we would request approval of this item. Thank you, Mayor.
Does any member of the City Council have any questions or comments? May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second? We have a motion and a second. City Clerk, can you please call the roll of the City Council?
Council members Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Yes.
And Mayor Polito.
Yes. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 16?
Thank you, Mayor Polito. Can I just say it's the same as the last one and get a quick one? No, okay, I apologize. I'm kidding. So this item is the consideration and possible approval of the extension of contractual amendments with the city manager, myself. I appreciate the council's consideration of this item. The specifics there are a 4% pay increase, which is the same as the bargaining units received through the bargaining process, a 2-year time period, additional evaluation options for the council, and I said 2-year period, and with a 3rd-year option for the council as well. With that, I'm sure the city manager or myself would be happy to answer any questions on this item. Thank you.
I'll move to approve.
I'll go ahead and second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Polito.
Yes.
Yay, Mike, you're stuck with us.
Yay.
I have one request from our city manager. You need to up your dad jokes. That's it. That's all for me.
My dad jokes would become grandfather jokes. But all joking aside, I would just like to thank the council for the support, for the opportunity to continue to serve this council and to serve the residents, not just directly also, but through the team that we have here. The team that we have is an extension of myself, and oftentimes they're better than myself. And I think we're seeing success with the team that's been built here. And so I'm appreciative of the staff. I'm appreciative of the residents and the support of the residents, and also many of the other stakeholders that we have in the city of Bell Gardens. And I'm obviously especially appreciative of the council as I work for you directly. So thank you for the opportunity to continue to serve you and your community. Thank you.
City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 17?
Thanks again, Mayor Polito. This item is for a local commission's appointment list. We have a couple of vacancies. There was a specific request for this one. So at this time, it'd be open for the council to make appointments. Thank you.
I'd like to appoint Amy Sanchez to the Traffic and Safety Commission, please.
We'll go ahead and second that.
We have a motion and a second. City Clerk, sorry. Will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Councilmembers Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Polito.
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations, Amy. She's watching.
Congrats, Amy. Congratulations.
Congrats, Amy.
Congrats, Amy.
Now everybody, congratulations. I'm just kidding.
Now we're all gonna synchronize. All right, 1, 2, 3. Congrats, Amy. That's how we roll.
City Manager, will you please announce it? Wait, sorry, was that the only motion for the commission? Yes, okay. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 18?
Yes, Mayor Polito, thanks again. This is an item that comes to the council on an annual basis and also can go back to the council at any given time. It'd be at this time that the staff would recommend that the council make any changes, reappointments, or appointments as necessary to the attached matrix of appointments. Thank you.
I'd like to make a nomination to appoint Mayor Maria Pulido to the Hub Cities Committee.
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
May we have a roll call vote?
If I may, I'm gonna go ahead and do a comment here. Sorry about that. I have a little bit of a mustache issue when I wear a mask. So I'm currently the person sitting in the ad hoc, in the external committee, sorry, for the hub cities. That committee is extremely important to me because through that committee, I've been able to help keep some of our at-risk youth and our community members employed. It is one of my favorite external committees, and I haven't missed, I believe, any meetings whatsoever. I was not told that there were plans to remove me from this committee, and I believe that is unethical. I was recently removed from several other committees without any prior knowledge, not even a warning about it, and I really don't appreciate that. And I believe that if we're going to be working together as a council and we're going to be united, we should at least have the common courtesy to give someone a heads up if they're thinking of removing them from a committee. So as much as I would love to continue serving the community by being part of the hub cities, I understand that right now there is, for whatever reason, there is a pattern of aggressivity against me from the council. And I would like to make sure that the public is aware of this. This is already the second time that without any notice, I'm being stripped of a committee that I wholeheartedly feel I'm doing a great job at serving in. And so I would like the council to reconsider this position. I do think that we can achieve great things together, but I believe that this is not the way to do it. I would like to have more cordial communication with the council. I would like to make sure that we are treating each other the way that we would like to be treated. So please reconsider, and if not, we will have to work with reality the way it is, right? Thank you.
City Clerk, can you please conduct a roll call vote?
Council members Barcena,
No.
Cortez,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
I'll abstain.
and Mayor Pulido.
Yes.
Mayor, can I make a comment, please?
Yes.
I just want to say to my colleague, Mr. Barcena, the audacity that you have to sit there and say that you would like to be granted some sort of courtesy when I vividly and clearly remember sitting right over there and being pregnant, and you taking over the ad hoc committee for the pool aquatic with somebody else when you never granted me that courtesy. I called you and I texted you and I texted you. And even after all the aggressivity, which you have paid me with, I still continue to be courteous and kind and say hi to you and just try to be cool with you because you are here sitting with me and the community is counting us to work with one another. And I can say that I've held that and I've upheld that to the best that I can. And I feel that everybody in this room can attest to that, and even outside of this room. So I'm saying this now because I never said anything about it. I never spoke out about any of the things that you've said or that you've done or that anybody else has, because I feel like it's not helpful to the community. It doesn't help the residents of Bell Gardens to know that there's any sort of animosity amongst us. But for you to sit there and say that you're the victim is absolutely bizarre to me. And I feel that absolutely you might be in a place that you've put yourself in, but it's not because anyone is targeting you, at least not me. And I don't believe that anybody else is. But I am still here willing to work with you and with everybody else, even after, I mean, I've never been mayor. I've been here as long as you have and Alejandra has, and I've never been mayor. Do you realize that? And I don't bring that up to anybody because it doesn't matter to me, because I might not be the council's mayor, but I feel like I am the people's mayor because they tell me, and that's okay. I don't have to come here and throw that in your face or make you feel in any shape or form. And I feel like nobody else has to do that. So honestly, God bless you. And I hope that you remember the things that you've done. And when you ask for something, don't ask for something that you're not able to get.
I just want to clarify, Madam Mayor, when Councilmember Flores was removed from her committee, from the pool ad hoc committee, it wasn't to accommodate me, it was to accommodate Councilmember Cortez. So she was replaced by Councilmember Cortez. And I just want to clarify that because it's important for people to know. I know that politics can get pretty dirty, and as elections get near, people start creating these types of exchanges. There is a lot of political stuff going on right now, and I want to make sure that I speak my voice, and I will continue to speak my voice. I will continue to vote for what is right. Keep your eye on the council, please, and make sure that they're being consistent with what they say they're for, what they say they're all about. You know, right now we have the rent control issue come up. I believe we made some progress today, but keep your eyes open because a lot of those things can change from one day to another. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Okay. Public participation is now open for items not listed on the agenda. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no written comments for this item that have been submitted. The members of the public will now have the opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the mayor and council members. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Written comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by pressing *9. When instructed, press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. And there are no hands raised, so that concludes public comments.
Jane, I have a public comment that that a resident emailed over to me that I emailed to you that was supposed to be read at this portion of the council meeting. It's from Fran Barrera. He lives on Purdy Street and he wanted his comment to be read regarding a noise complaint coming from a home that is being currently rented as a party facility. If you need it, I have it here. I can. Follow me.
Dear Bell Gardens counselors, my name is Fran Barrera, and I have lived in the city of Bell Gardens for approximately 7 years. The reason for this email is to let you know about the problem of controlling housing uses in residential areas. The owners of the house at 755A Jamboree Street, Bell Gardens, California, 90201. They rent the house to have parties with live band music that end at dawn. In particular, I live with 2 older adults. I work very early on weekends. In the apartments where I live, there are children too, and we cannot rest because the unbearable noise. In addition, due to the large number of cars that come, it is very difficult to find parking. Sometimes we have to leave the cars until Eastern Street at the risk of something happening to them. We have already tried to solve this problem with the police, but the following weekend, the same thing happens. Please, we need a policy or a committee that is in charge of regulating this problem and give us the peace of mind that we residents who live and pay taxes to the city need. Thank you.
If there's no objection by the city council, I will close public participation. We will now move to council member comments. We will circle around back to council member Barcena. Councilwoman Cortez?
No comments, thank you.
Councilwoman Flores?
Boy, do I have a list. City manager, sharpen your pencil. I got some direction. All right, so number one, first off is Mrs. Chavez here. Yes, she is. Mrs. Grisel Chavez, our Public Works Director. I just want to say thank you. I know that there was a request that came in from a resident regarding the lack of a handicap space available for Bell Gardens Elementary, and you took care of that. And although it's not completed, it's on its way. And I just want to say thank you for taking the leadership on that and making sure that our ADA family is being accommodated, and you're taking care of it as quickly as you are. Second, I went to Cesar Chavez Elementary recently, and I spoke to a teacher who says that there's a huge dog poop issue in our city. I also spoke with our what is it called? The mail lady, the postwoman. She says that there's dog poop all over Bell Gardens, and the dog poop is now inside of the schools. It's gone so far as that it's smeared all over their children's carpets. And it's not just a nuisance, but it's becoming a health issue now. So we can please look into adopting an ordinance for citing or reprimanding residents who don't pick up after their dogs, because it is definitely becoming a health issue for the children of our city, and just for the well-being of the postmen and women who walk our streets and have to deal with that nuisance. Maybe we can start by putting signage, maybe providing doggy bags. I don't know what the solution to that would be, but definitely I believe that our Public Works Director can get creative with that. So I'll leave that to you. Also, a request was made by also Cesar Chavez Elementary staff. They would like to see more trash bins in the surrounding schools. Bell Gardens High School is only a block away from Cesar Chavez Elementary. So as the children from the high school make their way through the schools and onto their homes, they leave lots of trash lingering around, and they feel that there isn't enough trash bins to accommodate the level of traffic that is currently being walked through. And then I also would like, looking into changing the zoning code for Clara Street on the half of Clara, Ira, and the cross street would be, I guess the closest one would be Habaneria. Residents on that street gathered the sufficient signatures for parking permits. However, because of the zoning code, Grisel, what is the zoning code on that block? You know what I'm talking about, right? You're muted.
Good evening, Councilmember Flores. I believe it's the area on Clara from Ira to Gephardt.
Yes.
And
Gephardt. Yeah.
Sorry, I would defer to Gus as to what the zoning is now, but it is a combination of residential, multifamily properties, as well as commercial businesses.
Gus, do you know what the zoning there is?
I don't have it in front of me. However, we are going through a zoning consistency change right now, staff. We're going to be bringing that to the Planning Commission and City Council. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that.
Yeah, so they gathered all the signatures needed to adopt the parking permit. However, because of their zoning, they're not able to put it into place, and because it doesn't allow, I guess. I don't have the address, but it's on Clara Street between Ira and Gephardt.
I'll make sure to look at it first thing in the morning.
Yeah, and then because of that, there's been an alarming rate of possible can-be incidents of children being ran over on that portion of Clara, because the driveways are being blocked, and so kids have to go around onto oncoming traffic to just continue to walk down the street. So they have to get off the sidewalk because the cars are blocking the sidewalk, and they have to get onto the street, and then the cars are also parked in front of the street. So they're actually like in mid traffic, just trying to get through down Clara. So if we can please look into that, because it's becoming quite an issue for the residents on Clara on that half. And then recently, I just want to brief you guys on my most recent visit. I was in Washington, D.C., taking care of some issues and actually advocating on behalf. I went to the National League of Conferences. With this year was in DC. I think every year is in DC, every other year or so. I spoke with Megan McCorda and Ellie Holman from Senator Feinstein's office. I discussed the Delta Airlines matter, which led Senator Feinstein to now reach out to the city, and we're directly working with them to provide resources from Delta to our community. Senator Feinstein has also showed interest in our police department. Since I spoke very highly of them, she wants to know what it is that we are doing, because she's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and would like to see what she can do to implement the same sort of progress in other cities. I also spoke with Victor Castillo, who is the Chief of Staff for Congresswoman Roybal Allard, and also reiterated the Delta dump. They are helping us move forward. And as you guys know, we held a town hall about 2 years ago. So we have signatures and everything necessary to move forward. We also spoke with Deborah Chappelle from the Federal Railroad Administration. She has some issues that she's going to be exploring with Southeast LA, not just Bell Gardens, but Southgate was in the meeting too. So we're going to hopefully, get some assistance with that. And then in the last couple of days, I know that we have a federal friend who's helping, I think, Nava with some grants. So overall, the DC visit was very helpful because we are now advocating for monies. And city manager, we can please give us an update on the pool. I know that there's been some pushback from the federal department. If we can just know who we can reach out and whose phones we have to blow up to make sure that we are able to start the construction on our swimming pool. And that is all. Thank you again for all the callers, and to all of my colleagues for an excellent meeting, and to all the staff for all you guys do. I know it's not easy, and you guys are here really late and missing out on your families, but know that what you're doing is also a service to our community, and they really appreciate how you guys bring your hearts to work every day, from our Parks and Rec to our Public Works, our Community Development, our Chief. Manny, I know you don't get a lot of love, but you got it. And to all of our IT and staff department. That's all. Thank you for me.
Councilmember Barcena.
Yes, thank you for that. I want to say thanks to staff for doing your job. I want to thank the council for making the right decisions as much as possible. As far as me being involved in some of the committees that I've been removed from, that's fine. I just hope whoever ends up there can do a better job. I'm sure that we'll be fine with Mayor Pulido. Mayor Pulido, please take care of that board. I believe Hub Cities has a lot of potential in helping our community. We need to promote it more, because I don't think enough people know about it. So those are just some of the notes that I'm leaving with you from when I was involved. And really looking forward to the next update that's coming from the Aquatics Ad Hoc. We've been working very hard on making sure that we are always one step closer, and we're predicting what's coming our way. For example, there's some complications involving some of the paperwork that proves who owns what land over at Ford Park, and just very technical things that keep popping up. But our staff is trying to stay on top of it, and we do have something scheduled coming up at our next council meeting, I believe. Is that correct, City Manager? Yes, Councilmember Barcena, exactly. Yes, we do have an update from the Aquatics Ad Hoc. It's really hard for me to express how much it means to me, the pool. I actually ran because of the pool, and thinking about it from this perspective, it just, I'm excited that we have some money. We have about $6 million in a grant locked up that is going to be released to us soon. However, I'm still very concerned, and I want to stress the urgency of this project, because it's a lot of money, and that money needs to go back into our community. And there have been thousands and thousands of kids that have suffered from the disappearance or the closure of this pool. I believe now it's been about 6, maybe 7 years or something like that. It's been a very, very long time. And we want more than anything for that pool to be finalized. And we're working as hard as we can, and I will continue to find ways to make sure that this pool gets built ASAP. That is my comment. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Thank you for that. Thank you for everyone for a great meeting. First off, I want to thank our PD, Neighborhood Watch, and faith-based organizations for organizing the Candlelight Vigil on March 30th. I had the pleasure of attending and participating alongside my colleagues, Councilwoman Cortez and Councilwoman Flores. We got to march and chant along Veterans Park, and then all the way here to City Hall, and then we did it going back. So I'm really glad to see that event organized. I think we should continually collaborate with our faith-based organizations here in our city. They're key to getting messages across to our constituents, and it'll be a great ally to continue partnering with them. Following that event, I had the honor and privilege of attending Cesar Chavez Elementary the following day and participate in their assembly. It was Cesar Chavez that week. His birthday was that week. I got to talk about kindness and the importance of standing up for those in harm, and it was a great experience. Briefly, being able to participate in events surrounding the youth is an amazing experience for me because in many cases, serving in the capacity that I do, I get constantly mentioned that I'm very young or that there's a lot of work that needs to be done around young folks. But in my opinion, being around the youth, teenagers, elementary, middle school, high school students, they're the real youth, right? They're the future. And it's just incredible seeing the impacts that we could do and sort of hopefully we guide them in the right direction, right? Yeah. The following Monday, April 4th, I had the 710 ad hoc committee meeting for Gateway's COG, Gateway's Council of Governments. We discussed the foundation of the 710 ad hoc committee principles and certain Measure R projects programs that I'm pretty sure our Director of Public Works is very well knowledge around. So the Measure R projects and programs include Florence Jaboneria improvements, along with Garfield Eastern and Florence Eastern improvements. So it was great to see that we're going to go ahead and get some of those funds for those projects here in our city. April 7th, I got to attend a senior birthday social. That was last week. There was a couple of seniors that attended that event. April 9th, I attended the Spring Festival. This was this last weekend, and it was awesome. There were over 1,000 people. In all honesty, it felt like it was a lot more, maybe 3,000 people. Shout out to all the staff that assisted in this event. Huge shout out to all the students from our local schools who were out there. I saw a lot of iCare Pathway students from the high school, and I just want to say thank you for being awesome and for assisting throughout this event. You are certainly helping out your community and the kids. It's an incredible experience having the egg hunt here in our city every year, or at least this year. And I got to see our director of Recreation and Community Services, Elizabeth Nava. I think she was doing like a headstand or something like that. It was really cool. Yeah, I just running out there and just very energized. Love that energy and continue supporting our community out there. So finally, today I attended the Senior Karaoke Lounge, our luncheon. It was great. A couple of our seniors attended, and overall it was a great seeing our seniors dance and sing at our community center. Briefly, I want to conclude by saying thank you to all residents who participated today and submitted your comments. You are heard and you will be listened to. Gracias.
And that's it for me. I just want to thank Mike for all of the work that you do here for the city. And we're very, very extremely lucky to have you at least for the next 2 years. And I'm sure it'll continue. You have proven yourself with our community. And even though you don't look Latino, I think you're doing a pretty good job. And yeah, acting Latino and eating our food and yeah.
Mike has spiced your salsa since 3 years ago, right, Mike?
You turn a little red when you eat the salsa, but you try. So we really appreciate that. We're lucky and you're a blessing for our community. Thank you so much.
Briefly, huge shout out to City Manager Mike at the Candlelight Vigil. He said it all in Spanish. That was awesome. I don't know if we're gonna have you concluded in Spanish this meeting or something, but yeah, no, your Spanish is good.
Buenas noches.
There it is.
And don't bring him green sauce anymore. He only does red now.
Oh, amazing. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting at, oh my goodness, 10:07 p.m.